Hello, everyone. Welcome into our latest live broadcast. It's Sunday, the 26th of October, 2025. I'm Kerry Holzman, and today we're going to do an upgrade of a similar PC from Friday, which is from the same customer who had all these machines built about 8 years ago, a little over 8 years ago. And unfortunately, they fall just on the other side of Windows 11 supported CPUs. These were i7 7700s, which customer had no complaint. It's just they're not going to run Windows 11. Of course, we can do the extended security updates for another year, but the customer just figures we got to do it anyway. It's a good time to do it. Let's just get it done. So we did the first one on Friday. I finished that up off camera, which actually took quite a few hours to swap the memory out and fix up the cable management a bit, as well as get the system activated. Now, when I activate Windows, I'll tell you what I do. I mean, some people want to know, where does a legitimate computer repair shop buy real copies of Windows that aren't sketchy? I go to URCDKEYs, it's specifically VIP-URCDKEYs, and they accept PayPal, and they offer Microsoft Office versions and Microsoft Windows versions, all at a fraction of what Microsoft wants. I have to stay competitive in the marketplace, and places like Dell, HP, Lenovo, those big system manufacturers, they're getting these bulk licenses on a scale that I will never match in my entire life, what they go through in just a couple of months. Heck, what they sell in 1 month is probably more than I'll ever do in my lifetime. So of course they're buying in a massive bulk. That brings the price down, and that's how things like Costco work. It's no secret. And basically, if I show you the website, we've got links to their website in this video description below if you're interested. This is what their website looks like, and we have a discount code. So on top of the prices that are already really, really good, you get another 25% off if you put the word Kerry in as a coupon code. And they support that for up to 6 months. So if you have any problems or issues, you just reach out to them. They'll take care of you. If you have any other issues beyond that, you just contact us directly. I'm proud to say we've only had, I can count on one hand the number of people that have had some issues over the years. I think we're on year 3, maybe year 4 of working with them. And I'm just really honored to have them continue to support us here and to be able to extend this offer to our viewers, because without the offer to you guys, this wouldn't be happening. When we take on any sort of endorsement, there's got to be something in it for the viewers first, and of course the company themselves have to have something in it. And look, as long as both of those things are happening, then it automatically happens for me. So it just is a very easy, non-abrasive. We all need Windows, at least if you're watching my channel. I don't think you're going to be an Apple user or a Linux user. So there's a reason why Windows is the most used operating system in the world and has been for a couple of decades. And I'm not here to debate which is better. I'm just here to tell you, if you're Windows, like most of the world, you can save money on your license keys with legitimate supported license keys, genuine and authentic. And I fully back that up 100% personally. Good luck finding another content creator who does that. All right, let's get back over to camera 1 here for a moment. Again, my thanks over to URCDKEYs for making that offer for our viewers. Thank you to Rick Lakes, who submitted a contribution, a super chat, just before the show started. Thank you, Rick. I hope you're doing well, my friend. Eugene Eldago joins us. I see RLD in the chat. Spider-Man's in there, Sean Skinner, and of course Maralina, our channel administrator, hanging out in the chat room. Luke Greenia says hello from Vermont. And Mark Gaines from Northern Ireland joining us. Eddie Casanova and John Lewis. John Lewis joins us from Brazil. Our friend Buster, Peter Laycock, as always, sends an Amazon gift card in lieu of a super chat for today's show. He joins us from Edinburgh, Scotland. Shout out to our good friend Buster, or Peter Laycock, as you'll see him in the chat room. And I think they've already had daylight saving time. I think that's what he was telling me. So now we'll go till, what, 9 o'clock or something their time? About 8 hours ahead, I think. Let's see. They were 9 hours ahead. Arizona doesn't move their clocks, and the United States will move our clocks this weekend, I think this Sunday, a week from today. Let's see. Who else is joining us? Scott Messerschmidt says hello. And Ben Laird, as I mentioned, from Scotland. Lana Dro says hello. Buster says it is 47 degrees Fahrenheit there in Edinburgh, 8.3 Celsius. You know, here in Phoenix, we're going to hit temps of about, well, into the 90s this week. And by this time next week, hopefully, we'll be back to the 80s. So we're not quite through we're not ready to open the windows up, you know, and let the air blow through. It's still too hot for that. But it's still better than 100+ degrees that we've been dealing with every single summer for, 90+ days in a row. But I'll take what I can get. Let's see. Also joining us here in the chat, Scott says hello. Andy says hello. Jose Lopez and Michael Lavelle say hello. There's also LRCX. That's Larry from California joining us. Doman 2000 and Bike Man say hello. Tim Francis joins us and says hello, as does 3D Everything. Dazzle 555. PSC Computers Missouri says hello in the chat room. Amar Shabir says hello from Canada. Jose Lopez with a $1 super chat. Right on. Thanks, Jose. John Lewis in Brazil says 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Feels like 83 here. Today, below the equator in Brazil, it'll drop to the mid-70s tonight. That sounds nice. Email. And we already have email. We're already getting email. All right, let me check the email here real quick. Thank you guys so much. Mark Carden says hello. And I hope I didn't miss anybody. Justin Miller and David Herzog are also joining us. Robert McCord Magumi says hello. So look, if you're watching us right now, we are live. It's 1:10 p.m. here in Phoenix time. As I mentioned, Phoenix does not honor daylight saving time. Next week, I will still be on at 1 o'clock. But if you're winding your clock back an hour, then I'm going to be on an hour earlier for you. But not for me. I'm still coming on at the same time. Just so you know, there is that time change coming up for most of you. It does not affect me. So expect to adjust accordingly. And if you are watching live right now, Sunday, October 26, 1:10 p.m. right now, it's the same as Pacific time until next week. Join us in our chat room. Pop on in, say hello, because the benefit really of this YouTube channel versus any other YouTube channel you can find on this platform is our community. We have the nicest, kindest community. We don't care about race, religion, politics, sports, none of this competitive, I'm better than you nonsense. What we exude here is kindness. And if you feel like that sounds like you too, please join us. We have lots of room for other like-minded individuals who base their priority on kindness, not on how smart you are, not on whether or not we can agree, not on whether or not you're too dumb to join in. No. Nothing could be further. What we're looking for are just nice people. Come on in, say hello. That's all you have to do. Watch what happens. All right. So if you're watching on a TV, just pull out your phone. You can chat that way. And thanks for watching today. Now I'm going to dismantle this older system, and we're just going to put a brand new board in there. I've been looking around the studio to see what I have to use. I have another 11600K. Only this time it's a full-size ATX motherboard. And thankfully, I built a lot of these 200Rs and kept all the spare. Well, not all. I kept a lot of spare screws and standoffs. So I'm going to have to move some standoffs around, I think, and I'll probably be a few screws short, which actually yesterday, when I was buttoning up the system on Friday, it turned out to be 2 screws that were missing. that because of the gigabyte mounting holes on the board we took out, they just aren't standard. And the board I put in is standard from ASRock. As a result, there were supposed to be 2 additional screws. The good news is all the mounting points on the ASRock lined up perfectly with the case, and the screws on this full ATX board, you know, they're going to line up perfectly as well. It's just that thankfully I have some original spare parts from so many of these builds I've done.
I wouldn't get for an intercom or red light or something. You have email again.
All right, excellent.
Or do you?
You're the one who thought it was a good idea to get a 2-story place. You know, at least you don't get bungalow legs. All right, let's check out the emails before we get started today. Let's see what we've got going on here. Let's see. Luke Greeny with a $25 PayPal says, just a little something from a friend. Well, thank you so much, Luke. I really appreciate you, my friend. Mark Gaines, our friend in Northern Ireland, sends us an Amazon gift card. He says, I hope you enjoy this gift card. It's my contribution in lieu of Super Chat. Why are people doing this instead of Super Chat? It's because YouTube takes 30% of anything that goes through Google, basically. So if you send me $10 via Super Chat, and I do appreciate it, believe me, I do, just know YouTube's taken $3 of that. And furthermore, they make me wait 30 to 60 days before that money gets passed on to me. If you send via PayPal, let's say $10, PayPal will take about 30 cents. So 3% versus 30%. If you send an Amazon gift card for $10, I get $10 and I get it instantly. Although with PayPal, I get it instantly too. But with Amazon, I get it instantly, and I'm just spending it at Amazon anyway. In fact, did a little shopping last night and picked up a couple inexpensive things, which I'll talk about on tomorrow's show. Every Monday, we do our members-only videos, and if you're a new member here, first of all, welcome in, and thank you for supporting us. We're not a traditional sponsor-based YouTube channel, and those are almost near impossible to find anymore. These days, the content is a commercial. So we're trying our best to stay running, but at the same time without selling out and becoming a corporate spokesperson or being told what we can say or what we can't say or what we have to talk about. It's all up to me as a working computer technician to talk about what's on my mind and to have the freedom of speech to have my opinions coming from the workplace, coming from a place of sorry, I thought I saw a squirrel. Coming from a place of actually doing the work versus just being on the internet. Nothing wrong with being on the internet. There's nothing wrong with playing with your computer at home, and I encourage it. That's how I got started in this career. I just feel like it's off balance. I feel like for everybody that's doing this in a career, there's maybe 1% of 1% of the working IT folks making any social media content. Probably because they're burned out doing it all day, 5 days a week, maybe even more than that. The last thing they want to do is come home and do it some more. But then 95, 99%, I guess it would be 99 if the math adds up, those are going to be enthusiasts who just love the hobby of computers. And they make up the bulk of the content you watch here on YouTube. And the problem is that that content is often inaccurate, misunderstood, or incomplete. And you wouldn't know that because they don't know to tell you. And unless you're an IT person professionally, you don't know what's missing. So I'm trying to make the content I wish somebody would make, right? I just said, you know, I really wish there was somebody working in the industry that could, you know, really tell people the truth instead of going for clicks. And then it occurred to me, I'm somebody. Here we are. Maybe I'll start a new trend someday. Thank you again to Buster with the Amazon gift card as well. And thank you so much to each and every one of you. Even if you're just hanging out in the chat and joining us, that is a form of support that I also appreciate. You know, it doesn't have to be financial. But I will tell you that what we do on this channel and how often we can do it depends on whether or not we can make all the bills at the end of the month. You know, if I'm going and doing this full time, then I have no other revenue coming in. Think about it. If anybody, never mind me, if you wanted to go full time on YouTube, You're going to spend time 3 to 5 days a week, let's say, making videos. Not only do you have all that investment in equipment, but how are you going to pay all your bills at the end of the month? So we're able to do that thanks to the support of our members here and for your super chats. And I just can't thank you enough because I love doing this and you guys enable me to do it. And it's a pleasure having you here. And I appreciate your interacting with me while we're live here because that's the whole point of it. Otherwise, you might as well go watch TV. This is meant to be interactive. You're supposed to be a part of it. Like I said, if you've not joined our chat room, you don't know what you're missing. You really need to come on in here and just say hello. It doesn't matter if you're uncomfortable or shy. It's just polite to say hello and just watch what happens. It's incredible when you're in a supportive community, the feedback that you get from a simple hello, which, by the way, should be society, but it isn't. But we can create utopia here. You just have to choose if you want to be a part of it. So with that motivational, inspirational speech, let's get this thing opened up. We should see basically the same as we saw last time. But if you didn't watch last time, I'm expecting all the same components. It's occurring to me that, you know, and it was brought to my attention that I really could have reused the RAM and the NVMe drive from the previous build. There's nothing wrong with them. And the reason I find this to be fascinating is because we've always, like in my career, it's always been about getting the latest and the greatest. And, you know, having equipment go obsolete within just a couple of years of you buying it. The joke was by the time you got it home, it was obsolete. This has not been the case for about 15 years. Computers more or less, you know, they hit about 3 gigahertz, and then they just started adding more cores, and very few software, especially early on, really took advantage of having any more cores. So what you were buying was an idea. You were buying a concept, a thought. And the marketing companies did a great job because people have been upgrading and upgrading and upgrading for no point whatsoever in most cases. Now we have a legitimate reason to upgrade where we have a requirement because the internet has become so dangerous in order to keep you protected. Windows 10 just isn't going to be able to do that much longer. And Windows 11 does a much better job with security. Unless you're foolish enough to bypass the security requirements and throw Windows 11 on a non-compatible computer. I mean, you could put diesel fuel in your unleaded gasoline car because the gas is cheaper, but it's probably going to cost you a lot more in the long run and cost a lot in repairs. But, you know, look, it's your decision to make. I just, as an IT technician, that is always a bad decision. I've never seen that once work out. Just give it time and you'll understand. When it happens to you, if you don't heed my advice, and I don't blame you, you know, see for yourself. I can't predict when it's going to happen, but I guarantee it will. You're going to have a security breach, or you're going to have some new printer or piece of software you bought that simply will not work in Windows 10 because of regulatory requirements. What I'm thinking of right now is like TurboTax, right? But worse yet would be a ransomware virus. So again, you've got extended security updates for another 12 months on Windows 10. You're fine. But it's coming, and I don't believe Microsoft will extend that again. The fact that the operating system's 10 years old is ridiculous. But the point I was trying to get to was that it's really our CPU, the chipset and the CPU, that's really involved in the compatibility and the security that we're worried about. DDR4 RAM is still sold today, and NVMe drives that are Gen 3 are still sold today. And if you have a Gen 3 NVMe drive or a Gen 4 or a Gen 5, turn off your benchmarks and use your brain. These companies have you convinced it's worth paying a lot more money to double your speed. But at some point, doubling your speed results in very little performance difference in the real practical world where you're using your computer and you're noticing it's going faster. When a Gen 3 drive runs over 3,000 megabytes per second and you double that to, let's say, 7,000, let's say you go to Gen 5 and you double that again to 13,500, I think is what they're currently at. What you're actually doing is you are increasing performance by milliseconds. And yes, the benchmarks will show you look how much faster it's going. But your body and what you feel will say, this feels the same. My wallet feels lighter for sure, but my computer doesn't really feel much faster. If any, you might detect a slight performance boost, maybe. But for that little tiny performance boost, you are gonna pay, and I mean pay. And if you're okay with it, you know, spend away. But I'm not in this for the money. I'm in this to help people, and I know it sounds like a line. I hear it and I go, gosh, you know, really? Seriously, is that okay? Am I allowed? Can I honestly, truly just want to help people? And by the way, I have a house payment, an electric payment, an internet bill, and car insurance like everybody else. Otherwise, I'd do it for free because I love doing it when people are appreciative. And when people aren't appreciative, I love doing it because they pay me. Actually, if somebody was really upset with my service, I'd rather give them their money back, say, sorry, I couldn't help you, and I wish you luck in the future. I'd rather leave on a good note because I'm not in it for the money. And if they feel, if a customer were to feel that we're not a good fit, sorry it didn't work out, I'm not going to pander to them. I treat everybody the same. Spending $10,000 on new computers, or you're spending $100 on a mini PC, it all takes the same time and care across the board. I'm straight up. I'm not walking on any eggshells with anybody. I tell you how it is. And if that's not your style, it doesn't fit well with you, I'm sorry, you know, that didn't work out, and wish you the best, and we'll move on and go our separate ways. The world is a big place and people have choices, and I don't want to force anybody into anything. Nobody's signing any contracts and, you know, having to come back to me for support. This customer comes back to me because they wanted to, not because they had to.
Yeah.
Oh, another email. All right. So I just want you to know that's the credo that I live by is probably not going to get me rich financially, but it does make me feel rich inside in my soul. And I wake up every day thinking, you know, there's another opportunity to teach or to help. And oftentimes I get taught things, whether I'm figuring something out new or the audience. You know, we have such a level of viewers here of technical savvy. They're often helping me out all the time. So it's not like it's a one-way thing. It's not television. I want to keep in mind. And to each other, they help each other out all the time. So our friend, I have a gentleman named Tim Gillis, and Tim reached out to me and he said he's having a network problem. He does computer repair professionally, and he's never seen this problem before. And I said, well, let me log into it remotely and take a look at it. And so I logged into it, and he's got two computers that see each other. They're all clean installs of Windows 11, and two computers that won't play. They just refuse. And essentially, I tried everything in my bag of tricks, and nothing worked. And the reason I'm mentioning this is that was the email that Mara was referring to, came from Tim. And I told Tim, first of all, I hadn't talked to Tim before. I've seen his name. But I said, you know, send my fee via PayPal, so I know you're serious, quite frankly. And then give me a number and a time to call, or I'll give you my number and we'll schedule a time and whatever works for you. We did all that. I took a look at it, was on it for about 2 hours, couldn't figure it out. I said, well, he's got a managed switch and he has a firewall, which could be creating a VPN or not a VPN, a VLAN. I don't know, and he didn't have access to it. There was no way for us to log in and check it. So I refunded his money. I said, well, I can't fix it. There's no charge. Send his money right back. It's real easy with PayPal. You just hit the refund button. And I said, please follow up with me. If it does turn out to be the smart switch, or it turns out to be the firewall, I'd like to know. And he sends an email back, and he says, a couple days later, he says, we got it figured out. It's a long story. I'll tell you later. Now, earlier, the ironic part of this is when I had Doug Betts on a couple days ago, we were talking about why don't clone machines on new installs. And if you missed that, I strongly recommend you go back and watch it. Because in that moment, when he said he figured it out, I'm I bet this is a security identifier issue, an SID issue that's caused from cloning, which I learned that lesson back in the 90s not to do that. And apparently it's been okay, it's been working. But Microsoft has been saying this whole time, don't do that. It can cause problems. And people ignore it. They just ignore it. They go, well, Microsoft's wrong because I've been doing this for years. And I want you to listen to the story I'm telling you. This is critical information. And this is why you don't monkey about with other people's systems. I don't care what Microsoft says the person who, thinks they're smarter than Microsoft, because I have been cloning machines and I've never once had a problem with it. That's the logic. I don't play that game because you're rolling the dice. What you're saying is it works today, so it'll work forever. And if there's one thing you should know about technology is it's always changing. You never know when those changes are going to come, and you never know what they're going to affect. But I'll tell you, you can predict what they're going to affect. The minute you do something not recommended by Microsoft, the minute you start cutting corners in order to save time, you might actually think you're getting away with it until you're not. So this has been going on for years. People have been cloning. They'll have 10 computers that are all the same. And rather than go through, there is a proper documented process from Microsoft if you want to restore a system image to 10 different computers. The sysprep tool, and there's other things you can do. And people are like, it's too much time, I can't be bothered. They're taking shortcuts. And look, they're allowed to take shortcuts. I'm not telling you not to do this. I'm simply telling you what everybody else isn't telling you on YouTube, which is if you choose to listen to them, there could be consequences in months or years ahead, and you're not going to have any idea what it is. You will be dumbfounded. And when you ask professionals for help, they're going to be dumbfounded, because never in a million possibilities, when I'm diagnosing a system, would I think somebody did something outside of the Microsoft recommended process. So it never occurred to me in this example to ask, did you clone these computers? He mentioned that they were all recently reinstalled, right? Or the Windows was a fresh install, but I never even thought to ask. So I said, let me guess, security identifier, you cloned your machines and now you have, because Microsoft recently released an update where the networking won't work anymore. It'll ask for a name and password and things when it shouldn't be, because it looks like the request is coming from 2 different PCs with the same name. The network can't tell them apart. Now, why did Microsoft start enforcing this after all these years? Because the bad guys on the internet are getting more aggressive and more creative in trying to steal data from you. They're doing it to protect you. And there's nothing more frustrating than hearing from a typical enthusiast user going, why can't Microsoft leave things alone? Why did they take something that was so easy and make it hard? Instead of saying, thank you, Microsoft, for enhancing the security of my machine, given that the threats online are so serious and getting worse every day, we appreciate that you're putting us first and trying to stop this before it happens. And yes, putting locks on your doors is inconvenient, especially if you lose the key. And this is why we have spare keys. I would hope that you have at least 2 keys for your car. And if you don't, well, I don't know what your plan is when you lock your keys in the trunk. All I can tell you is if there weren't bad people looking to cause you financial or physical harm, you wouldn't need locks on your doors. The difference is that when it comes to Microsoft Windows, there are more copies of Windows in use around the world than any other operating system on the planet. And yet the threats are much, much higher than somebody, much more likely to cause harm to you on the internet anonymously without any concern of getting caught. Because they're probably doing it from a country where they don't care. Do you think Russia minds if their citizens hack USA? Do you think North Korea minds if their citizens hack the USA or Canada? Or they don't care. So what if you're caught? They'll do nothing. So the worst thing that can happen is they're not successful. That's it. They've got nothing to lose. They're not risking anything. But you are risking everything if your attitude is, I'm sick of Microsoft changing all this stuff. Microsoft wouldn't have to change it if the bad guys would stop being so aggressive and they keep changing their tactics. There's thousands of ways they can get in your computer. So as a result, there's a common misconception among the non-technical people, some of which think they're technical, which adds to the absurdity of this whole situation. And the security identifier was put in place specifically for these reasons, but it wasn't really enabled on peer-to-peer networks, mostly on connecting to domains and businesses. And there was other reasons for it, but for the most part, just gives you an idea of how things have changed. Now it's become an issue on the internet where it's become a vulnerability that people can jump into your network. It's very easy when you have an SID that is mimicked around your network where a machine just can't validate if you are authentic or not. So an update came out that disabled, or rather it started to enforce the SID, but since these machines were cloned, they all had the same security identifier. Now there used to be a tool, Mark Russinovich had a program called sysinternals, and we're talking back in the 90s. He had a tool that would change the security identifier for people who clone machines. And Acronis and Macrium, they usually have like, you go under options when you do your clone and there's like a checkbox, change my SID. That's all you have to do. I don't know why it's not on by default, but whatever. But Mark Russinovich retired that utility because he says no one really needs it. Microsoft says you do, but they're not enforcing it, so why bother? And you know, any company that needs it, they've already got processes in place. And I haven't tested this on Windows Vista. This is how back his post goes. So I'm just not going to do it anymore. It's pointless. So they end up selling, I guess they licensed or sold the technology to a company called State, what are they called? Anyway, they now sell this program called SID Change or SID CHG. And for an end user, just like for me or you, it's $119. It's crazy. That is way too much money. And there doesn't seem to be a GitHub project or any freeware way to do it, except the software does have a trial. And I'm assuming if you're just doing 1 or 2 computers, the trial will be all you need. But if you're a tech and you're going to need it in your toolkit, the license price goes up from there. And there's just not a lot of options out there to change it. Now, of course, you can always create a new user account. You can always move profiles over. It's time consuming. And if you'd have set it up right to begin with, because you were trying to save time, you wouldn't be putting so much time into it later. And then my question was, of course, now do you bill for this? Because if the tech that you're calling to fix it is the tech who created the problem, then would it have been cheaper for the customer and to pay the tech to do it the right way, even if it takes a little longer, rather than pay the tech again months later? Well, you're also inconvenienced until the tech comes out. You're done. Your hands are tied. There's nothing you can do. Your network doesn't work. In the line of a business, thinking of business, the tech kind of has you by the short hairs at that point. So, I would rather, me personally, let's just do it right. Let's not take shortcuts because we don't want to roll the dice. And if you do it all right, then this is the best case scenario. This is the worst that can happen, which is these systems were built 1 year before the 8th generation chips came out, which are the minimum required for Windows 11. It's just 1 year too early, but we didn't know that when we built it. System's never been in for repair. It's never had any problems. The customer's never had any complaints, and the customer would still be using it today. As far as they're concerned, it's fine. But they are also concerned about security, and they definitely want Windows 11 in their office universally for security reasons and also for consistency. So employees don't have to use one computer one way, another computer another. The employees screw up enough as it is. So let's minimize the complexity of their job if we can. And let's increase the security of the office, obviously. It's for their benefit. It's not for Microsoft's benefit, although Microsoft absolutely can benefit. Microsoft isn't really selling computers. Yeah, they sell the Surface, they sell stuff like that. But overall, whether or not you buy a Dell or an HP or Lenovo or you build your own, Microsoft's not making money from that. And if you do your free upgrade from Windows 10 to Windows 11, Microsoft's not making any money from that. And you could say, yeah, well, they're making money from the data collection. Yeah, so's your phone. So's everything in your life. Your car, if you have a modern car. I don't know. There's no getting around that. Cities and counties or municipalities are putting up AI cameras to keep an eye on what's going on outside. They're not doing it to harm you. They're doing it to protect you. So if you want freedom or if you want protection, pick one. So there's definitely two sides of the fence. It's a pretty hot political item. I'm happy to say that as far as I'm concerned, nobody really knows who I am. I'm not a high value target. I have no power. I have really no influence outside of a few people that watch the channel, I suppose. If I was a celebrity, if I was a politician, I would care more about that. But I'm just another ant in a pile of ants. Nothing about me stands out. Nothing about me makes me a target. They always say that was it a Japanese expression, the nail that sticks up highest gets the hammer. You just blend in. You have security through obscurity. No one really, so if you're on camera, who cares? Nobody knows who you are. But the minute you walk up to the camera and say, hey, now you're drawing attention to yourself. Now you're becoming the nail that sticks up. Whereas if you'd have just ignored it and went on with your life, there's no difference to your life at all. But that's just the way I see it. So anyway, so the customer says, look, we've got some downtime. We've got a couple machines. One that we had an NVMe drive fail on. I wasn't sure until I saw it, but that's what it was. And that's so rare, but it's not impossible. It's just very uncommon. It's also uncommon for lightning to strike within 50 feet of wherever you are. But it absolutely happens. Now, we've already got the first machine diagnosed and the new NVMe drive and the new software, reconfigured, installed. We've done the second computer, which is the upgrade. And now this third computer should match that same configuration. And at that point, everything in their office will be Windows 11 compliant and very modern. And let's face it, after 8 years, really after 6 years, professionally, they should have replaced the machines. Most professional corporations, large companies, they'll replace the machines every 3 to 5 years. That's just standard. You don't wait until you have to. You do it before you have to. It's always preventive. Not only that, but you're getting the latest technology, which is supposedly more efficient. It depends what you do for a living. But as I mentioned, when we go from this 7th gen to the 11600 I've got, it's not making that much of a difference. Not only that, you could say, well, why are you putting an 11th gen in when the 15th gen is currently out? It's just cost more money, significantly more money. I can do this for 1/3 of the price. This customer's got to pay 1/3 of the price of a Core Ultra system. I want you to think about that. We're not having to replace DDR4 to DDR5. We don't have a lot of added expenses that once they sit down and use the computer, it's not going to seem that much faster than it is now. And even if we go from 7th gen to the 15th gen and skip over everything in between, they're going to notice a bit of a difference. But mostly the difference people on the internet are seeing is coming from benchmarks. And what's fascinating to me is nobody questions the legitimacy of the accuracy of those benchmarks or how they relate to real world use case scenarios, which I've never seen a benchmark ever replicate how somebody really uses their computer. So it's really something, it's why we test drive cars. You can read about the benchmarks on the car all day, but until you get it in and drive it, you understand how it feels. You may hate that car. It may look good on paper, but behind the wheel, you have no desire to ever drive that car again. It's miserable. The ride is uncomfortable. It's got blind spots. Yeah, it might look sexy and it might have good horsepower and it might even give good gas mileage, but you might find out the insurance cost on it is outrageous. You might find out that it feels like you're feeling every bump in the road as you drive it. You might find out the trunk is too small to actually be really useful for what you intend to put in the trunk in the course of owning the car. Or the hatchback, perhaps it swings up and hits the top of your ceiling in your garage, or maybe it opens sideways and swings into other cars. We have all of these different designs because we all have different priorities. So for one benchmark to suit us all is preposterous and absurd. But yet that's what you will find over and over and over throughout the internet. The benchmark says this. And we don't talk about how we feel anymore. It's very rare you find somebody who says, you know, I upgraded my computer that was 8 years old to the latest and greatest, and I gotta be honest, it doesn't really seem any faster. A little bit, it is a little bit faster, but you know, I just dropped $1,200 on all these parts and took everything apart. And you know, if you were already running Windows 11, if you already had an 8th gen processor, there's probably no reason for the vast majority of computer owners to upgrade, honestly. If you're a gamer, that's a money spending luxury. If you've got the money and time to game, knock yourselves out. You obviously want the best of everything because you couldn't possibly make up for that with skill, could you? He said sarcastically. Because trust me, when you start playing Fortnite against a 7-year-old with an 8-year-old system that's older than the kid playing, they will whoop your butt every time because that's all they do all day, and they got real fast hand-eye coordination. They're not making up for skill by buying better hardware. It's not a pay to win for an 8-year-old, but it might be for you. And if I can pay to win, that's not a game I want to play. I want to play a game on skill. And your skill isn't really going to get any better any more than your cooking will get better with pots and pans being more expensive. Your photographs won't be any better because you bought a better camera. You're not a better driver because you bought a more expensive car. There's nothing in this world that makes you better because you spent some money on something. As far as I'm concerned, if there is, it's disgusting. But a lot of people in society today, they want to take the easy way out. And that includes a lot of techs. They want to cut corners, they want to save time, and to be damned with the consequences. I'll deal with it when it happens or if it happens. I can guarantee it's going to happen if you don't follow the procedures. The procedures exist for a reason, and just because you don't know what the reason is and it hasn't bitten you yet, doesn't mean the reason doesn't exist. So if you're in this for the long haul, you got to think about the future. If you're just looking to make a few quick bucks, fixing a couple computers and you're out, well, you can scam all the people you want. It feels, for me personally, it feels a little scammy. If you're a professional, I expect you to do professional work. And as a professional, you're telling me you don't have to do what the other professionals do? That's a red flag for me, but it's your choice. You're not breaking any rules or anything. It's just not an ethic or a moral that I live by. But I'm not telling anybody else they have to live by mine unless you work for me. So just understand the risks that come with the decisions you make, because ultimately you're responsible for them, for better or for worse. And as long as you're willing to accept your accountability in whatever you decide to do, I think it's great. Do whatever you want, but you're not a victim. Nobody caused you any harm. You voluntarily made this decision that you truly believed at that time was going to be a safe decision. And now as a result, you've got other work you have to do to clean up the mess you made earlier that you didn't realize was going to be a mess. That's a choice. I'm choosing differently. Not telling anybody else what to choose. Just explaining why I have this mentality. And I'm not trying to sell it to anybody. I don't care if you agree or you disagree, because your consequences aren't mine. I only care about my own. All right. There we go. We should see an identical system. As I mentioned, I'm always consistent with how I build. It doesn't matter how much money the customer's spending. I always do the same job every single time. And it's because I want the same consequences. I want to have the same consistent results, for better or for worse. The difference is if I'm following all the Microsoft recommended options, and there are options. You know, Microsoft can say, you can turn this on or turn it off. It's your personal preference. But if I'm adding a system utility that adds options or turning off Windows services that shouldn't be turned off because I believe it's giving me better performance, you're going to walk down that road without me. Okay, so inside, yeah, this looks exactly the same NVMe drive, the same RAM. So I think what we're going to do is we'll reuse this NVMe drive and we'll reuse this RAM because, as I mentioned, it's really just the CPU and chipset that has to be updated for Windows 11. Nothing wrong with this RAM, nothing wrong with this NVMe drive. Both of those components have an average lifespan of approximately 70 years. So there are reasons other than a natural death where the silicon degrades, over time. I'm telling you, that's 70 years for that silicon to degrade. That also doesn't mean that just because you bought something new, it's going to last longer than the old thing. That's my big concern here is if we change any parts out, whether it's RAM or NVMe or the power supply, I want you to think about the consequences. If this power supply has been working since day one, never had a problem, the older components get, the more statistically likely they are to fail. But if this power supply has a lifespan of 70 years, if all this stuff has a lifespan of 70 years, and we're only 8 years into it, that's still a long life ahead of it, statistically speaking. But at the same time, if you say, well, statistically, a new power supply will give me a higher likelihood of never having a problem than an older one, you're right, but at what cost? So if we're going to replace the RAM and we're going to replace the NVMe when we don't have to because we want to put the statistics in our favor of not having a problem with those particular devices, is it worth the cost? Because we're talking about a $500 upgrade here versus a $1,000 upgrade if we want to replace everything. You could buy 2 computers and have a spare one for the same price, and if something fails on one, just jump to the other. On the other hand, you could still spend the $1,000 and get everything replaced and still have a problem. Who's to say within 2 weeks one of the parts doesn't fail because they haven't been tested by real world use case scenario. They've been tested at a factory. That's usually pretty accurate, but things can be handled pretty rough in shipping. And you don't know how long something's been sitting on a shelf. Something that's brand new to you may have been set on a shelf for 2 years before you bought it and opened it up. So your new power supply is actually 2 years old. But you wouldn't know that, would you? Ignorance, just really this lack of information, results in people making terribly, terribly bad decisions because they have this belief that what they bought is new. Very few people ever think about this. So at the end of the day, is it better to buy something brand new and put the statistics in your favor, but it doesn't guarantee anything that you're not going to have a problem anytime soon? Or do you not spend the money because your old parts have been burned in? They've been tested, they work. There's no indication they're going to go out anytime soon. It's a gamble whichever way you want to do it. One gamble is going to cost you money. Guaranteed you're going to be out another $500. Guaranteed, 100%. The other way, you might have to replace a component. You probably are not going to, but statistically between the two, you'd be more likely to have to replace an older component than a new one. But that's just statistics. That doesn't mean that's what's going to be your experience. And if a component goes out, then you can replace that specific component when it goes out. So you'd have to have multiple components go out to spend, what it would cost to replace those components proactively. And again, without a guarantee. Even when we replace the components with brand new, they could die anytime. They haven't really been tested, have they? So do you stick with what's tried and true, knowing it's got time on the clock, that it is less time it has, but we don't know what that time is, but statistically it's about 70 years. Now, if there's a power spike or, things happen, somebody spills something on it, that has nothing to do with the longevity of the components in their regular, use case scenario, typical use scenarios. And the point is, they'll far outlive their usefulness. You will replace these components long, long before there's any issues. And I won't be around long enough to prove this to you. But while I am around, if I should ever see it, I'll show it to you. And right now, I think in my career we've seen 5 bad solid state drives in the last 13 years, 12, 13 years. And I've installed hundreds of them. So, you know, generally the vast majority of them are still running today. The ones I put in 2013 still work today. There's a couple that don't, but most of them, the vast majority, still working today. They'll still work 10 years from now. They'll still work 20 years after that. Yeah. Well, I can tell you because I do this for a living. I know what I see. I know what customers call me for. I used to replace hard drives a couple times a month.
You have email, and Buster already purchased the Kindle version.
Oh, well, Mara just published her latest cookbook. That's on Amazon, and Buster's already bought the Kindle version.
Yeah,
we're still waiting on approval. She just did it. Thank you, Buster. Now, her recipes in this book are primarily focusing on a new ingredient called UnbelievaFlour, which she has found to be just the best flour replacement. It was an ingredient that wasn't invented before. This person, Jared, said, you know, somebody should make a more blood sugar friendly flour alternative that doesn't taste like cardboard.
And flour, if you are or have or test your blood sugar or have diabetes type, for myself, this has zero impact.
Zero blood sugar impact.
Zero blood sugar impact. It is very versatile. It's very flexible. You can literally anything with it, including thickening. You can make breads, pies. You can make pie crust, brownies, whatever you want to make with it. And I've been testing because I've been testing it for a year, so I know for a fact that this is safe, delicious, and it's very versatile.
And keto.
And very.
I was telling Mara, I like ketos. I like the flaming hot ketos. Am I pronouncing it wrong? Keto?
Yeah, kind of.
CH keto. No?
Not quite.
So, put a link to your book in the description so people can check it out if they're interested. A healthier diet that doesn't have to taste like diet.
Right.
All right, so with that, Charlie Purdy joining us here in the chat. Welcome in, Charlie. Oh, and check my email. Francisco Oma says hello. Anyway, I appreciate that Tim had gotten back to me and told me what the solution was. And so a lesson for us all that you might have been able to get away with that in the past with cloning without changing the SID, but not anymore. The internet's just become too dangerous. Oh, Charlie sends us a very generous Amazon gift card. Thank you so much, Charlie, for your continued generosity and support. And yeah, join us tomorrow on the members only. And I'll tell you what the latest purchase is and give you a few other updates on what we got coming in. But with that, let me go ahead and tear this down. The reason I've been able to sit up here and just kind of talk about the philosophies behind all of the work I do is because this is a pretty quick job. With all the cable management done, not only does the machine look a lot cleaner, it's a lot easier to work in. Whether I have to do a repair, should the unexpected occur and we have to replace a component, it's super easy to get in there and change a part out without fishing through a bunch of wires, and it can get frustrating. So I spend a little extra time in the beginning with the idea being, even if I'm not the person who works on this in the future, because remember, the customer can take my systems anywhere. They're not locked in like a lot of Dells, HPs, and Lenovo's that lock you into their own components. I want customers to come back to me because they want to, not because they have to. And I'm hopeful they're going to come back to me, and if I spend my time cleaning the cables up, even though the customer's probably never going to take the side panel off, I appreciate it when I have to work on it because I can get in and out real quick. Even when it's a whole motherboard replacement, there's really not much I have to do with the cable management, usually. It depends on what it has versus what we're putting in, but for the most part, even if I have to do some modification to the cable management, it's still much, much faster. So I put a little bit of time in the beginning so I don't have to put as much time in forever into the future. It's a very sound investment to do it right, to take your time, and it will pay you back tenfold. But there's a lot of people who can't be bothered, and they'll pay the tenfold. That's their choice. I don't work that way. I just don't have the patience to sit there and fish through spider's web of cables. And if a customer brings in a system that has a spider's web of cables, one of the first things I'm going to do is get those cables straightened out before I even start diagnostics. Even if it means just pulling them out and pushing them off to the side and leaving them disconnected. I need them out of the way. It is absolutely critical for me to do my job. Can you imagine if a surgeon, if you went to an operating room and the surgery room was a big mess? There was stuff all over the floor, posters on the walls, staples and tacks, ceiling head stains on it. I don't want to be rude. I don't want to be prude, but I think I'm going to just go somewhere else for my surgery. If I walk to the back of a kitchen of a restaurant and it's nasty and dirty, there's stuff laying all over the place. Stuff shouldn't be in the refrigerator. It should be in the refrigerator and they've left it out. How long has that been out? There's stuff all over the floor that nobody can be bothered to mop it up or clean it. It looks like it's been there a while. I think I'm just going to eat somewhere else. And so the same with computers. It's if the person cooking the food, if the person doing the surgery is okay with that kind of mess, what kind of mess are they serving me? What kind of mess are they going to do inside of me? If that's okay with them, I don't have a problem with them living their life that way. I have a problem with them pushing that on me because I don't want that. It's not what I'm paying for. I'm paying for professionalism, and none of that I just described is professional at all. And if they don't want to be professional, they don't have to be. And as a customer, I don't have to give them my business. And that's what I'm thinking about when I work on systems. If I was paying somebody like me to do this job, this would mean a lot more to me in customer confidence that the guy or the gal that I hired takes pride in their work. When I was working at Intel, just a side note, I used to work on the laptops for the entire Chandler Intel campus. I was the only guy that did that. And at that time, laptops were very expensive and really only upper management had them. And if you piss off somebody in upper management, you're likely not going to have a job very long. So no pressure. And one of the things that I would do is when they gave me the laptop, it was always like the cord's all wrapped up and it's a ball, here you go. And when I was done repairing the laptop, I'd get some Windex or something and clean the outside of the laptop, get a microfiber cloth with water, no chemicals, wipe down the screen, wipe down the keyboard, and then I'll take the cable that came with the power supply, and usually there's a cable that goes out of the power brick into the laptop and a cable that goes out of the power brick and into the wall. Take those cables and fold them, just like it was when it was new. Put a wire tie on it, do the same, and then it's much easier to carry around. You're not tripping over a cable, and it's much more presentable. So when I brought the computer back to the executive, it looked like it was brand new. Not only did I fix it, I had numerous compliments where they said, I don't know who that guy is, but my laptop looked like brand new when he brought it back. They were so unaccustomed to that at Intel. It stood out to them so much that they needed to tell somebody, and it's very flattering. That is the worst thing that can happen, is that you don't get the compliment, that they just keep it to themselves. But if you just do the bare minimum, don't expect anybody to compliment you for that or to be happy about it. I mean, they might initially be happy with how fast and cheap it was, but that happiness will soon fade when they find out the consequences to fast and cheap. So anyway, it's just part of my philosophy. I've always had it, and I've always just, if I brought a laptop in somewhere and I saw them, the workers cleaning it and cabling it, I'd be like, wow, that's what I want to do. That's really professional. It shows you care and you're thoughtful and courteous, which I expect somebody to be if I'm giving them my money. Let me be rude to you and give me your money. No soup for you. All right, let me get the board out of here right quick. And they didn't leave any USB dongles in it this time. That's good. I don't have to take the other panel off for this. So we'll just go ahead and lay it on its side. And I apologize, there's not much that you're going to be able to see here, but we just don't get much work like this anymore. The PC buying trend has really slowed down drastically now. Whether that's the economy or a change in the consumer attitude, I don't know. In the business world, things are as strong as ever before. So the enthusiast community, you know, this computer work used to be quite, what's the word? Kind of niche. Niche? Not that many people were into computers in the 1980s, 1990s. Towards the end of the 1990s, they started to really get popular for home users. And even when I started this YouTube channel in 2008, 2009, YouTube was not very popular. Most people didn't know what it was. Then all of a sudden, everybody got interested. It felt like the world now wanted to learn about computers. And now it looks like we reached the end of the world wanting to know, and it's going back to being niche. Niche? I have a hard time with that word. Niche. And on top of that, what you don't see on YouTube is what businesses are doing. Because IT opportunities and careers have job security, the likes of which very few other career paths have right now. And it's not going anywhere. So while the consumer side is slowing down and interests of the consumer, they're very fickle. They change on a, you know, they go from Beanie Babies to Power Rangers to Garbage Pail Kids to Bugglers. Remember fidget spinners? You blink your eyes. That's all everybody talked about, and then you blinked your eyes and nobody's talking about it. But when it comes to employers are using computers more so. They depend on them more than ever. And as a result, they need more IT people. They need more security. They need more network infrastructure. Look at what happened at Amazon with AWS services. Your job career is safe. As a YouTuber making videos for enthusiasts, it's going away. I mean, it's pretty much almost back to the way it was, where we're back to sort of a little club again. And that's interesting. I don't know if it's good or bad, but it's definitely not a place to start a career. I wouldn't want to start a career working on consumer computers. I just think that you're going to get frustrated. You're not going to make enough money. You're going to work 10 times harder for 10 times less pay and deal with people that are quite often difficult to deal with. You get a full-time or even a part-time job in IT, they're going to keep you busy. You're going to continue to learn. You're going to get a regular paycheck and hopefully have opportunities to grow within that company so that your pay increases and you have a sense of stability in your life, that even if that company laid you off, you could take those skills to another company. So, food for thought. Trying to get this CPU power cable off. I tightened that cable up pretty tight. I didn't give myself much slack. All right, so I've just disconnected the power cables and USB and, you know, front port umbilicals. And now I'm just going to remove a couple of screws, and I probably need my glasses for this so as I can see. There we go. Yeah, so when I put that other board in, I was 2 screws short. I think I used a total of 7, and I think these boards from Gigabyte only use 5. Or 6 if the case allowed it, but the case says that's not a standard mounting point. Gigabyte says it is. And nobody else but Gigabyte says it is, so who do you think is right and wrong? I gotta disconnect that rear fan. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5. I think that is it. And then the board should just come right out. Unless I'm missing one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's a pretty significant difference from 7 on a same size board from ASRock. As far as security and stability goes, for the board to not flex and to stay flat and level, 2 extra screws do make a difference. Gigabyte says, no, they don't. You're not saying much Gigabyte on this channel for some reason. Somebody thinks the rules don't apply to them. All right, so I'm gonna just set that here. And the standoffs that come pre-installed on a 200R are already set up for a full-size ATX board, which should take 9 screws. And you know, I always give my customers the box, the motherboard box that has all the spare screws. This customer never knows where the box is. After a while, I got wise to this, and I started not giving the screws back to the customer. I said, you know, I'm going to need the screws, and they're not going to have them. And then what am I going to do? I suppose I could eventually find some that'll work, but I'd rather, I mean, I already had them. So for that reason, I ended up, you know, especially with this customer ordering as many computers as they do, I realized they're never going to keep these boxes. I wouldn't be surprised if 4 years from now this customer finds the box that went with this. Oh, is this something you need? Yeah, I needed that 4 years ago. Thanks. So I just take care of it. So basically, when we put the micro ATX board in, there's a couple of standoffs in here that are in the wrong position. By default, this will have 9 screws, 9 standoffs, and this one has 11 because of the 2 additional ones that go in the middle that we normally wouldn't use on a full-size ATX board. So I'm going to grab my 5mm socket right here, and I'm going to take this, and I haven't checked the board yet, the one I'm replacing it with, but I'm going to guess that the one in the dead middle here, not the standard 3 in a row, this one is below that, but it's in the middle of micro ATX and ATX, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And it's not normally used on a full-size ATX board. And the same is true where we've got a standoff here and here. Usually it's this one. Some boards will use the additional one, but most don't. So I'm going to go ahead and take this out. This is typically, the 2 I'm removing are usually put in for micro ATX boards. That's what that is. We're going to replace it with a full-size board. And if I left these standoffs in, they would be hitting the bottom of the, it's not quite the middle, it's a little below the middle of the board, and it could short circuit things, and it can result in all kinds of weird symptoms that can be very difficult to diagnose. And that requires essentially taking the board out and physically counting how many standoffs you have versus how many mounting holes you have. This is really kid stuff, but so many adults, they just can't be bothered. They're like, I put it together, something's wrong with it. No, there's something wrong, but it's not with it. So details are not complicated, but they're important. And if you pay attention to the details, you're going to do really well. If you think this is super easy, you know, I don't need to, you know, I've never built a computer before, I watched a couple of videos, I can do it now without any assistance, you're probably not going to be successful. But I applaud anybody who tries, and especially if you're successful, even better. And even if it boots and it works, you still might have a short circuit going on that months later can come back to bite you. Let's see what I do with the motherboard. It's over here somewhere. All right, so this board, a little bit bigger. And again, these are parts I've got laying around so I can sell them to the customer very inexpensively. And this is what, a Strix, ROG Strix from Asus, all in white, which, you know, doesn't match the case, but no case window, no problem. We're going to need a cooler, so we'll use the same cooler we used last time. It's the same CPU. We'll use our RAM out of here. We'll put it in here, and we'll take that NVMe drive and we'll put it here. But notice our mounting holes. We've got mounting holes 1, 2, 3 across the top, 1, 2, 3 across the middle, 1, 2, 3 across the bottom. Now sometimes there may be an additional mounting hole right about here. This one doesn't have it. Most don't, some do. That's one of the standoffs I took out. Another one of the standoffs would have been right about under that PCIe slot. That would be bad news if we left it in. The good news is the default remaining 9 standoffs are what this case came with when it was new. And all we did when we put that board in is we added those 2 additional standoffs. And furthermore, this case does not acknowledge the 3rd mounting point that Gigabyte used, which would have required yet again another standoff, which Corsair did include, but without anywhere to actually place it into the case, there's no way to secure that board in that particular area. And it was good enough, let's face it. I mean, it doesn't have to be exactly perfect if there's a reason why it can't be. But that's because I didn't have a choice. It's important we keep our I/O shield. And I just want to dry fit this and make sure that we're not going to have any fitment issues before we start prepping the board. So I'm just going to set the board down inside. And again, with the cables managed, it's very easy to get cables out of the way. When the cables aren't managed, good luck with that. It can be very frustrating. And I just want to see that all the mounting holes and standoffs line up properly and that we're not going to have any unforeseen issues with getting this to fit. Got to get that rear fan cable out of the way. There we go. Should just seat right down on that center post. And so that's what it'll look like. The I/O shield's already built in. And if I get my flashlight, we'll look through the mounting holes and just make sure I can see the standoffs behind them, and we're good to go. That's good, that's good, that's good. Those two are good. Yep, yep, yep. Everything's lined up perfectly. Now, I could mount the board right now, put in the RAM, put in the NVMe drive, and put on the cooler. And this is all you're going to see the rest of the video. So for you, I'm going to do this the hard way so you can see what I'm doing. And we're going to take the board out and work on the board as much as possible outside of the case. Because I am trying to teach, I'm trying to show by demonstration, by doing the actual work instead of talking about it. I'll show you the work. But it's not an efficient way to work. You should really put the board in and work on it in the case. When you see content creators say, oh, I like to test everything before I put it in so I don't have to take it back out again, that's that shortcut laziness I'm talking about. So basically, if you're buying all brand new parts, you shouldn't have any concern that those parts are not going to work. Unless you bought brand new parts from a questionable source, somebody on eBay or, I don't know, just a sketchy seller, or you're buying used parts, in which case you may want to test things outside. The problem is by doing it this way, if you're not experienced, you can cause the very problem that you were worried about having. So you did it this way and created a problem. When you would have just done it the way I told you to, you never would have had the problem. Because this leaves everything exposed and open to, you know, static in the air and spills and mistakes. If you have a pet, the pet crawls up on you, jumps on the table and rubs against it. I mean, there's a million different things that can fall off the table. So, but if you're making a video and you're trying to teach people, well, then you really want that X-ray vision. You want to be able to show through. So, you know, that was asked on the previous show, why didn't I put it in the case first? That does make sense unless you're trying to teach people and then people can't see anything you're doing. So I want to address that again before, and if it were to come up again. And we're going to need to clean the top of the CPU off, and we're going to put the Mugen 6 on there. I guess I can start by, I'm going to pull the RAM and the NVMe drive off of here. So we're going to reuse that and the NVMe drive. Now I did remove, I cleaned this NVMe drive so it has no operating system and no formats on it. So when we go to use this, it's going to appear to be a brand new unused drive. Although if we look at the data, the smart data on the drive, we'll see it's got data and power on hours that represent its 8 years of life so far. It doesn't hurt anything. We're still far below what are called the terabytes written. And so what you'll see a lot of a lot of enthusiasts on YouTube do, and this is an example of why the professionals are going to offer you much more viable information than an enthusiast overall. Unless you're an enthusiast and you want to do what enthusiasts do, which is misinterpret and miscomprehend the technical information. And I see this over and over and over and over again. It just drives me batty. But basically, you know, if you tried to apply this in a college setting, you would fail the class, or you'd at least fail the question. And that is the TBW, or the terabytes written, gets misinterpreted as the lifespan of the drive. If you believe that, you're wrong. You've never been right. That's never been what it represented. But you've probably been brainwashed into believing it's true because it keeps getting repeated from one enthusiast to the next. And the viewers are watching the enthusiasts primarily because they believe those enthusiasts know more than they do. Well, they know something different, but it's not necessarily technically accurate. Terabytes written is the warranty. So if I tell you your car has a 3-year warranty on it, does that mean you should expect to replace the car in 3 years? Oh no, I'm getting close to 3 years. I better start planning on getting a new car. It's absurd, right? But for some reason, people apply different rules to computers. And what's worse is they make them up. They just believe them. They just believe it. And then they have the gall to tell people what they believe disguised as fact. And the truth is, they probably don't know that they're actually doing this. They probably believe what they're telling them is factual. And they're so convincing, not only have they convinced themselves, they're convincing all their viewers. So then I get to deal with a lot of customers that have a completely a misunderstanding of the technology. And this is just one example. This goes on and on and on. And look, if the customer didn't have false information and they were asking for the first time and I told them, they would accept it as truth and say thank you. But if they've been told something wrong by an enthusiast or by anybody, and then they ask me the question and I tell them, then they don't know who to believe. Well, that's not what I heard, Carrie. Like, you're the only one saying it, so you've got to be the wrong one. Because if I go on YouTube right now, there's really nobody that I watch that's saying TBW means it's just warranty. It's only you. So something, I think you're wrong, Carrie. And this is the problem. When the beliefs outweigh the facts, then it starts causing harm. And even if it wasn't intended to do it, make no mistake, there's harm. And, you know, what can I say? I go, well, look, you've asked me a question, I've answered it. If you don't like my answer, you know, you've got Google, do your research, do actual research from reputable sources. Don't believe YouTubers. Don't believe them. It might be entertaining, might be fun to watch, it might even inspire you. And that's great. But they're not educators, and they don't generally work in the field. Some do, most don't. And I think it's important to remember where the information's coming from and treat it as such. I got people that tell me how I should run a YouTube channel, but not one of those people has a successful YouTube channel. When they have one, I'll listen. If Mr. Beast wants to tell me how to run a YouTube channel, I'll listen. And if I want to debate with Mr. Beast and say, hey, Mr. Beast, no other YouTubers agree with you, so you're probably wrong. How absurd is that logic? But this is the world we live in, and I did my part. That's all I can do, walk away from it. Again, decisions and consequences. They're yours to make, not mine. My decisions are my consequences, yours are your consequences, and just plan accordingly, and we'll all be happy. We'll all know who to blame. I'm going to just put this board off camera to get it out of the way. Ask me how I really feel about that. It's really, really bizarre that it could be raining outside, and they go, no, it's not raining. Our friend Kelly Stewart had messaged me the other day and was talking about that Monty Python sketch. And he said, you know, another Monty Python sketch that would fit is the dead parrot sketch, where the guy absolutely refuses to accept that that parrot is dead. No matter what John Cleese does to prove the parrot is dead, the guy absolutely refuses to believe it. Nope, no, he's sleeping. He's just sleeping. Smacks the parrot against the table and says, wakey, wakey. Oh, he was just getting up and you stunned him. That's a great example that Kelly sent. And he's right. That's exactly very similar to the world we're living in today, where people choose to believe something And they honestly believe it. It's not like there's any malice in their heart, I assume. I'm assuming the best. They just know. Damn it. I know that parrot's not dead. I just know it. Okay, so the more things change, the more they stay the same. Human behavior seems to be going the wrong direction, but if you're going to engage with somebody in conversation, be prepared. That's all I'm saying. And what's great when you work for a corporation is they're going to tell you what they want. You're not going to tell them. They're paying you, and you're going to do what they tell you to do. And if they're paying you to come up with policies and procedures, you are likely in a position of that job description. That's your responsibility. They wouldn't just randomly ask their employees, how do you think we should do this? Not if it's involving, you know, technical, cybersecurity, networking. They hire experts for that. My nose is really itchy. I'm sorry, I keep rubbing at it, but if I got allergies or what? So anyway, I'll have to grab some spare screws here. I've got 5. I'm going to need 4 more, which is extreme, right? From 5 to 9. It is a bigger board, but that bigger board should only need 3 more screws. That's why I say that Gigabyte board's 2 screws short every way you look at it. Not that it's important. It's just different from every other board manufacturer. And I can't understand the logic that Gigabyte has not been able to justify it to me. So my suspicion is they can't justify it. They just decided. And that's the way it's going to be. But nobody else but them did it. It's never caused a problem. It's just different. And if it's different for a good reason, I'm 100% behind it. But if you can't tell me why it's different, it's just because. Like, come on. Why are you overcomplicating life? Isn't it complicated enough? Oh, I have a 960 Evo already in here. Okay, well that's fine. There's already a 960 Evo in there. So I'm gonna just go ahead and put this right back. I guess that's gonna save me a little bit of work, huh? 500 gigs, 500 gigs. Well, there you go. Sometimes things just work out. Well, that was easy. I told you this was an easy job. Pretty simple. And I guess I can move this out of the way. Let me grab my cooler. I did, just by chance, I had 2 of these older Scythe Mugen 5s in stock. And they were pretty dusty, sitting on a shelf. And I've had these for some time. I'm happy to get rid of them, quite frankly. As I mentioned, the number of builds I'm doing is a fraction of what I was doing, and I don't need as many spare parts. I still want to have a couple spare parts, but I have got an overkill of spare parts here. So any opportunity I have to use them can save the customer some money and also help me get some space back here in Studio C. Alan Linda's talking about USB Type-C not being on these older cases. Absolutely correct. But at the same time, the only time my customers, generally speaking, and I cannot think of one customer that's an exception, the only time they need USB-C is to charge their phones. They don't have any USB-C devices. None of my customers anywhere have any USB-C devices that are using the Corsair 200R cases. That means I'm talking about my business clients. USB-C's primarily, from my experience, here in Phoenix, is primarily used by customers at home, not by businesses. If I ever run into a business that's using USB-C, it'll be the first one I've got. It's coming. There's no avoiding it. It's just not there yet. So the fact that somebody might say, well, that case doesn't have USB-C on the front, you could always add it if you wanted to. Silverstone makes front 5¼ inch bay USB hubs that can plug right into the front of the 200R or any case that has front bays. You don't have front bays on newer cases. And from a business perspective, you know, they want to keep these optical drives. And if you said, well, you can have the optical drive or you can have USB-C, they'll always choose the optical drive, at least my customers that are businesses. It's the home users that'll want both. And yet the modern cases primarily have USB-C but no front bays. And the older cases have the front bays but no USB-C. There are a few exceptions that exist, but your choices are going to be very, very limited. And if you don't like the way they look, you're going to have to sacrifice the look, the price, or USB-C on the front, or front bays. That's it. You're going to make a sacrifice somewhere. Never seen a perfect case before. I mean, the 200R was pretty darn close to it for a long time, but then things have changed, and I wouldn't use it anymore personally. But the customers that have them, if they want to continue using them, there's no reason not to. And the motherboard will have USB-C on the back anyway, so it's not like they're not getting any USB-C. And the cheapest fix is to just buy an extension cable, plug in a USB-C cable, run it, you know, along the case, use some tape, tape it to the side. Again, I don't have any customers that use it, but there are no business customers that use it. Only home users right now are the only customers I have that use USB-C. Now, I personally love USB-C. I got nothing against it. And if I were building a computer for myself, oh, it's definitely going to have USB-C on it. So my failure to talk about it is simply because it's out of my thought process. I'm focused on what my customer needs, not what the viewers need. But on the other hand, you know, if a viewer becomes a customer, or a viewer just wants to understand why, there's certain things I'm not talking about. There's often a misunderstanding that can occur, especially on YouTube, where I say, if I change this NVMe drive out to a Gen 4, Gen 5 NVMe drive, my customer won't know the difference. And inevitably, there'll be one person that just goes right over their head and they go, well, I would notice a difference. It's like, I don't think you heard me. I said my customer would not know the difference. We weren't talking about you. Unless you're my customer, I don't know why somebody would make a comment like that. It's very strange. So this is, again, this is something consumers do. It's not something businesses do. And in my case, I can only tell you about the businesses that I maintain. I don't maintain all businesses. I don't speak on behalf of all businesses. I'm telling you about the work I'm doing for my clients' needs that have nothing to do with you. Okay. All right, let me just put that over there. I didn't realize I had to say that, but apparently it's required nowadays. All right, here's my thermal compound, some screws, instructions. These are the buckles for the fan, which I'll put over here. Keep those together. Get our brackets out, since I remember this from Friday. I know we need the 3-hole brackets. The rest are for chips we don't have. And then this part here, we need the plastic spacers and the thumb screws, and everything else goes back in the bag because those are for other CPUs that we don't have. So if I get all of the extraneous stuff out of the way, it's just less stressful to find the parts I need when there's fewer parts to pick from. So if I know for a fact I don't need all of these leftover parts, there's no reason keeping them around on the desk. Just all these, all this gets put off to the side. You may choose to keep them, or you can just throw them in the trash, or even the recycle bin. Because once that heatsink is on, there's a good chance that when and if this board gets replaced again, there is no adapters for future CPUs. So unless you're going to replace it or move it to an older system, that's a different CPU, you may need these. In my experience though, customers never ever move them. And for what they cost brand new, you might as well just buy a new one anyway. So they're probably going to go in the junk, in the recycle bin. So now this is pretty much all we need. And what I need to do is just get my isopropyl alcohol, clean the top of that CPU, and then we'll put on the nitrile glove, apply the thermal compound, put that on, put the RAM in, turn it on, check for BIOS update. It's really quick. If I was doing this off camera, I would have already been done half hour ago. But being able to tell you these stories and explain all of these philosophies and why these it's not enough to just tell you the philosophy. I have to explain why that philosophy is something that I encourage and I embrace. I don't want you to just take my word for something. I want you to see the math. Here's how I got to this resolution. And it may still not be a good fit for you, but I'm just explaining why it's a fit for me. There is a logic and a reason behind it. All right, so let me step over here and grab my alcohol and Q-tips here. We'll get this cleaned up. Might as well grab my nitrile glove while I'm here. And it will be great when I get the studio set up right in time where builds rarely will occur. I will be ready to do builds. You just gotta love that. So I'm using 99% alcohol. And the reason you want to use the high alcohol content is because it does a much better job with its cleaning properties, and it evaporates very quickly. You don't have to dry it off. And I'm pulling up a lot of old thermal compound on that CPU that I didn't even see, but it's clearly there. And I have email, thank you. Yeah, I guess when I put the thermal compound on this in testing, I might have put a little too much on there because it doesn't normally go down that far. I'm going to do one more just to be thorough. So basically, this is a solvent, right? It's 99% alcohol, which is going to be a much better solvent than 97% or 70%. And if you're looking at isopropyl alcohol or IPA at the stores, pay attention to the alcohol content. The lower alcohol content is for cleaning up wounds on people and animals. And the higher IPA, higher alcohol content, is generally for cleaning. And you definitely don't want to clean a wound with a high alcohol level. That can actually cause you a lot of harm. And you can Google that if you want to learn more about it. I'm not a doctor, in case you didn't know that. Okay, that's way more Q-tips than I thought I was going to use, but I'm happy with it now. Done with this stuff. Just put it up here for now. This back plate can now go on. What am I doing? Oh, so is this not? I thought this looked wrong. What CPU is this? The other one was 11600K, and this piece went right on. Isn't this also an 11600K? Let me see. Oh, no, no, no. It was a 13600. Was I every single time I keep referring to that other chip that's a 13600 or a 13500. I kept referring to it as an 11. So when I saw this one was an 11, I said, oh, they're both the same. But the socket 11 is a socket 1200, and the generation 11 is a socket 1200. The generation 13 is a socket 1700. Yeah, this is an 11600. I don't know why I got that stuck in my head. I was doing it all day Friday, just kept calling it the wrong thing. But still, a very good processor. Yeah, it's a bit older, but if I put this 11600 up against a 13600 and I have you run them, most of you won't be able to tell the difference outside of running some kind of benchmark software. If you open Word and check email and browse the web and pay your bills and even play some games, you'll likely see a difference in the games based on the internal graphics, but not on the CPU itself. So if you were to put a discrete graphics card and then change the CPU between them and play those games, they probably won't play any different. There may be an exception here or there, but overall, it's such an insignificant difference. Unless you have a very niche or intolerant attitude about, I've got to have the best. What we're trying to do for this client is save them money. At the same time, I'm also trying to get rid of some parts here that I know are going to be a great fit for this client. And it's all about what can do the job adequately. Remember what I said. They had no complaints with regards to performance on this 7700. This is for a Windows 11 upgrade. And they're basically going to get 2 computers for less than the price of 1 new one. I don't do this for everybody. It's just the timing of it. I have these parts. I know what this customer's needs are. And I think everybody's going to win here. And I think this customer is going to be absolutely delighted. And if not, well, then I'll do it again. And that'll be at my expense. So that means, so what that means is because these brackets were specifically included for 12, 13, and 14 Gen Intels, I need the other brackets. Normally, you're going to be building one computer. If you're at home watching me, you're going to know exactly what you've got. I've got dozens upon dozens of computers here, so keep that in mind. It's hard for me to remember which RAM and CPU and storage and motherboard and BIOS version and et cetera, et cetera. And it can lead to this, well, what you just saw, which is just a basic misunderstanding of what's in front of me, because to the naked eye, they all basically look the same. I was looking at this chip and I thought, it's an awful square chip. I thought it was more rectangular. Now I know why I was silently thinking that to myself. And I'm like, I'm just going to ignore it for now. And, okay. Now it all makes sense. Part of the job, man. This is part of working at scale. When you've got so many machines, you can stay on top of it for a little while, but it's going to win in the long run. Eventually, they all blur together and become one. That might happen when you have too many kids. Each kid is special, and then you reach a certain number of kids, and they're all basically the same. All right, let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. Also, I'll check email. Oh, Mortant send an Amazon gift card. Hello, Carrie, Mara, and everyone in the chat. And Mortant sends a very generous Amazon gift card. Thank you so, so much. That is so kind. I can't thank you enough. Thomas Mortant has been with us a number of years. He's been very generous to our community, and it's folks like that that help keep us away from becoming a corporate spokesperson. And thank you so, so much, both Charlie and Thomas today for their, and Luke Greenia too, for their generous contributions here to the channel so we can maintain our independence and keep marching forward. So I've got the brackets put on, right? This is a super easy install to do. All I have to do now is put the thermal compound down, put the cooler on top, and put the RAM in. So before I start that, Jason wants to know if both are DDR4. Yeah, basically the both systems were the same. They were i7 7700s. They were identical. They had the same NVMe drives and the same RAM. The 13600, you could buy 13th gen, 12, 13, and 14 gen motherboards that were either equipped for DDR4 or equipped with DDR5. DDR5 really doesn't perform any differently until you get into the high-range CPUs. So if you think you're going to buy an i5 14th or 13th gen and you want better performance of DDR5, then you've been brainwashed by marketing, because it doesn't help you one iota. It costs you more money for the DDR5, but it will not offer you one iota of performance increase. Now, if you get into an i9, and we're talking Intel platform here, if you get into an i9, you definitely want that DDR5 to take advantage of it. But anything below the high-end chips, DDR5 is a complete waste of money. And this client doesn't need those high-end chips. They don't need the added electricity cost. They don't need the added heat and fan noise that's going to come with keeping that cool. These machines will be on 24/7. And again, we're trying to keep the price down for the client, while at the same time, we want to get rid of some equipment we've got here. In this case, I'm giving them their equipment back. I'm giving them their DDR4 back and their NVMe drive back. That'll save them money. And as I mentioned, there'll be no downgrade as far as that goes. It's all an illusion. Getting fixated on the numbers doesn't translate to reality. Just keep that in mind. Just because you're reading stuff online, I strongly suggest that you, if you're that interested in it, that you do the research to actually find out what it's really doing. Because again, the way the enthusiast will paint it is that it's better. In most cases, unless you're getting a high-end CPU, it's a complete waste of money. That's the reality to it. So you can run benchmarks on it all day. And I think even you'll find with benchmarks DDR4 to DDR5 on anything less than an i7 is imperceptible, regardless of the benchmark you're running. And that can make a bigger difference on the AMD platform, but on the Intel platform, yeah, I wouldn't waste your money. I see people that like to put high-octane fuel into cars that don't need high-octane fuel. Why do they do that? The car doesn't use it. The car burns. The combustion rate of the engine is the same. So the high-octane fuel is wasted. It's just going right out your exhaust pipe. It's not being utilized any differently than the low-grade octane fuel. when you open your gas cap to your car, it might say unleaded only, or it might say premium only, or it might say you can do either one. Like there's some Toyotas that say if you put in the higher octane, you'll get better horsepower, and the engine auto senses the combustion capability of the fuel. All octane does is it allows you to compress down that fuel in the cylinder without it getting so hot it just spontaneously bursts before the spark plug goes off. It's called dieseling. It's also called knocking. So if you're buying high octane fuel for a car that doesn't use it, you're just throwing money down the toilet. It's the psychological marketing effect. So it's not just in the world of computers. People will spend all kinds of money on useless nonsense that supposedly gives you better gas mileage. You know, none of that stuff works. It doesn't work. There's no such thing. If there was, the manufacturer would have included it. Why wouldn't they? Right? They can give you better value by adding a simple little gadget on their car. It actually worked. Of course they'd put it on. They're not stupid. And all of this can all be verified online. You can find numerous trusted resources online if you want to know the explanation behind why it's a waste of money unless your car requires it. If you're interested in learning why, it's right there at your keyboard. All you have to do is look it up and just make sure you're reading from a reputable source of information. And don't take my word for anything. I strongly encourage you to verify what I say, unless you're not interested either way, in which case, can't be bothered. All right, let's put the cooler on. I'm still looking in the chat for other. There we go. So make no mistake, there are, like a lot of European cars, a lot of British cars, they want that high octane. A lot of American cars don't, but the higher end American cars do. But it tells you right where you go to fill it up. If you think your car runs better on premium gas, when your instruction manual specifically says to use that it's not required and not beneficial, it's psychological. And you know what? If you're happy with your purchase and it's really not doing anything other than making you feel like something's happening, I mean, I suppose you're happy with your purchase, right? Keep at it. When I owned my Mustang, it just wants regular unleaded. It doesn't. Dodge Challenger just wants regular unleaded. I could put premium in it, but it won't make any iota of difference other than in my mind. Toyota FJ Cruiser will go either way, and they'll say, basically, if you want this horsepower and this mileage, use this octane of gas, and if you want this horsepower and this mileage, use that octane. And the engine timing automatically adjusts according to the knock sensors that verify when the valves can open and close. When I had my Mini Cooper, it absolutely wanted premium gas, and you know what happened when I put regular unleaded in it? Couldn't tell a difference. But it absolutely said, you must use it. And there were times I was on a road trip that just wasn't available to this little gas station in the middle of nowhere. And so if I'm going to put in a lower octane fuel versus running out of fuel, I'll put in the lower octane, and I'll be damned. The mileage didn't change, nothing changed. There wasn't any knocking. And they said, yeah, but if you continue to do that over time, it'll cause harm. Will it? And there are other cars where you can absolutely tell a difference. And the car will actually, it'll absolutely say in the documentation, in the manual, that if you don't run this octane, the car's not going to run right. But those are mostly European, British cars for the most part, or high performance cars, expensive cars. There's always exceptions. I'm just saying generally. But if you're taking a sugar pill and after you take it, you feel 100% better, keep taking it. All right, I guess I can put the RAM in, and then we'll put our fan on, and we'll fire this bad boy up. I had a friend of mine in the 80s and 90s, and he liked it somewhere in the middle when it came to the fuel. So when he went to get gas, he would fill half his tank with unleaded and he'd fill the other half of the tank with the premium. And that way he got a blend that wasn't high and it wasn't low. He just created his own blend, and he swore his car ran better. So, hey, you know, to each their own. That works for you. Let's see here. Paper towel here. Squish a bug. Mosquitoes are out. We don't get them for very long here in Arizona and Phoenix, but we're in that season. And if you see me waving at things that don't appear on channel, is he going crazy? Well, yes, but that's beside the point. There's sometimes mosquitoes get in, and those are vampire mosquitoes, those bloodsuckers, I'll tell you. What's interesting is I was looking on Amazon for some anti-itch cream to put on the bug bites, and they now have an electronic device that heats up. And I'm like, there's no way that works. And it just looks like a little stick, and you charge it with USB-C, and when you have an itchy bug bite, you press the stick against the bug bite, push the button down and let it go, and it starts to get really, really hot. And what it's doing is it's killing all the proteins in the bug bite. And the heat can be a little uncomfortable. It's only about 10 seconds. But it's not more uncomfortable than the itch. So when you then, you know, it beeps to let you know it's done. And they have a lower heat setting when you're first getting started, and then you get more comfortable with it. There's a high heat setting. I'll be damned. It works. You don't have to worry about washing off any creams, you know, when you wash your hands. I don't really understand it, but like I said, if it's a placebo, I'm good with it, because whatever the hell it's doing, it's definitely stopping the itch. So just know there's these kind of, you know, especially if you're worried about putting chemicals on your skin or things like that, you're just basically burning off the proteins, I guess. And that's what's causing the itch, and that's why the itch goes away. As I understand it, I didn't even know there was such a thing until I was looking for a solution, because I said, you know, our mosquito season isn't that long, but why should I suffer if I don't have to? You know, how much is some cream to put on there to keep it from itching? And that's when I stumbled on that, and I looked at the reviews, and people were like, yeah, this works. Like, that doesn't make any sense. I'm going to buy it and try it. Glad I bought it. Then I don't run out of cream. I just have to plug it back into the charger and use it indefinitely. Martin says proprietary premium gas is required for early old airplane engines from World War II. Yeah, I don't really see many of those at the gas station. Good to know. Gary says he doesn't like new cars when they turn the engine off when you stop at red lights. Yeah, it turns out most people don't like that. Manufacturers are stopping that process now. They're not doing that anymore, or they're removing that from their cars. It is a common complaint, but the good news is there's plenty of new cars that have never had that ever. It's only certain new cars that have that. And again, we're mostly looking at European cars for that, mostly. And yeah, even there, when it comes to selling cars in the US, they're removing that. Too many customer complaints about it. I've never met somebody who thought that was a good idea or liked it. Never once. And the other complaint is when you turn it off, it doesn't stay off. The minute you restart the car, it resets back again. And that's the other complaint is, you know, give me the option to turn it off once until I decide to turn it back on. And I can't even imagine what that does to a starter. A starter motor is just going to burn out much, much sooner. All right, I'm just going to put the fan on here right quick so we can boot this bad boy up. And then we'll look for a BIOS update. Well, first we'll make sure it works. I have a suspicion it's going to work fine. You keep all the RGB, you keep all the liquid cooling, keep all the nonsense off of it. Not only does it save you money, it's less complicated to build. It's less likely to have any parts go wrong because you have fewer parts that can fail. We could easily build this with 16 parts, or we can build it with 8 parts. Those 8 parts will cost less than 16 parts, and having 8 parts that can possibly fail in the future is very different from having 16 parts that can fail in the future. So if you're a hobbyist and you enjoy the fun of it, you know, make it out of 175 parts, you know. But for me to work at scale, and I want to be able to keep prices down and be able to keep performance reliability up, for me, my choice, keep it simple. Don't waste your money. Don't overcomplicate your life. These are just temporary. At most, you're going to use it for a few years, and then you're going to replace it. It's not like you're setting this up once for life, in which case I might feel differently. But no, you're just going to rebuild it again anyway. So you're buying yourself a couple of years of enjoyment and frustration maybe, and you'll end up replacing it anyway. Especially somebody who's that much of an enthusiast, that has that mentality, they are most likely going to replace their rig before the average computer owner will, making it even more pointless to do it because the window of time you have to enjoy it is narrower. But to each their own. Just, you know, set your expectations accordingly and choose what you like. But there are consequences. Either way, let me go grab my power supply. I guess I forgot to bring it over here. I'll just grab that same little one we were using the other day. It doesn't take up as much desk space and doesn't have as many cables coming out of it, so it's a lot easier to use for a tester for me here on this limited space. And you'll notice this motherboard has an 8-pin and a 4-pin CPU power socket. And that additional 4-pin is optional. It's for people that want to overclock and overvolt. We're not doing any of that. So again, it's more money that can be spent for more things that can go wrong, that often require higher end coolers because the higher voltage generates higher heat. And then a basic cooler isn't going to cut it for you anymore. You also see I don't put a fan on this side. This is, again, a marketing tactic. It's all a gimmick. It does make a very small difference of about 3 degrees Celsius. But remember, we're going to have a fan right here, just 2 inches away at the back of the case, which is almost lined up 100% with the first fan. So the gap is about 2 inches. And as long as those fans are all blowing air this one way, having a third fan in the middle of that is very much redundant. You're adding more dust, you're adding more noise, you're consuming more power because the fan needs power. The fan motor generates heat. It's the opposite of keeping things cool. It's adding noise, adding dust, and then when the dust settles on the components, it's like putting on a jacket, and the components so cool as well. People don't seem to understand. Putting on too many fans is often a complete waste of money with almost zero benefit in most scenarios. So one fan here, we've got the case fan, that's your 2 fans. So to put one in the middle like that, and when I see coolers that have 3 fans, get out of here. Get out of here. Do your own testing. Do your own testing. If you've got a fan in the middle of your in the middle of your heatsink, you don't need one on either end. it should run nearly the same. If you don't believe me, just unplug the fan or take it off and try running your heatsink with one fan. Run your temperature test, then add a second fan, then add a third fan. You can add 75 fans if you want to. And the more you add, the more it costs, but the less difference it makes until at some point it's actually causing you to heat up. Yes, too many fans can create more heat. So there is a balance that we're always looking for, which is, could I get 3 degrees more? I could. But then I have another component that can fail. I have another component I have to pay for. I have another component that's bringing in more dust. I have another component that requires installation or removal anytime I want to work on it. Is that worth it for 3 degrees Celsius difference? Not for me, it isn't. No, for you it might be. And in that case, this is something you should see with your own eyes. You shouldn't listen to the internet. You should just try it and see. And then you'll know what the facts are. Without any doubt, you will know from experience. Very easy testing. Oh, this power supply actually does give us 2. No, that's video. What am I doing? That's video. I didn't think this power supply was going to give us that extra EPS connector. There we go. Okay. Momentary confusion. Let's see, I need a power switch. Sometimes the motherboards have a power button on them. This one does not. I was just checking. Throw the power switch on here. And we need a keyboard and a mouse, which I have over here. I need an HDMI cable, but we're not going to plug it into the network because we have no OS on here yet. That always comes later. We don't even know that it'll boot for sure, so why bother plugging it into the internet? Talk about putting the cart before the horse. That's some positive thinking. All right. Let's see, I've wrapped that around here. There we go. Let me grab a power cable. Plug that in. Turn that on. And we'll hit the power button here. And we should, well, you can't see it, but I see a RGB lit up here. I should see this fan turn. Yeah, both the fan on the power supply and the fan on the CPU cooler are turning. So let's switch over to the video output here and see if we get a post. Now our first power up is going to take a few seconds. Oh, that was actually faster than I was expecting. Okay, so BIOS version 2203. So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to the ASUS website. And this motherboard is a Z590A gaming Wi-Fi. Share the screen with you here. That should do it. Yep. So ASUS Z590A gaming Wi-Fi, ROG Strix, that looks like it. So we're going to go to the ASUS website, scroll a little bit further down here. There's usually 2 support options, yeah. So this one up here is for ASUS in general. And this one over here, this where it says support, is for this specific product page that we're on. So that's what I want. Go directly to this product page. Drivers and tools, BIOS and firmware. 2302 was released January 3rd of 2025. And isn't 2302 what we have? Oh no, we've got 2203. See, they moved the numbers around a little bit. Let's come back over here. Let's see all downloads. How far back was 2203? Oh, it's just the previous one. That's not confusing at all. Let's name that one 2203 and name this one 2302. No one will miss that. All right, so we're going to download that BIOS, and I'm going to extract the file here locally. And then I'll right-click on the extracted file. There's a 32 meg BIOS file. I'm going to copy that. And then let me come back over to, where did my, that should be the BIOS screen. It went dark on me. Let me replug that in again. There it is. Not sure why that happened. All right, let's get back over to camera 1, and I'll grab my flash drive. Remember from the other day? I keep it blank so I can copy my BIOS to it. Plug that into the streamer. And I'm going to copy that BIOS file just onto the flash drive. Not the zip file, but the contents of the zip file. 32 megs doesn't take very long. We're already done. So I can take the flash drive out of the streamer now that I've used to download the file and put it onto this blank flash drive. I'm going to plug this flash drive into any USB port here. Shouldn't matter which one I use. And we'll give that a second to initialize. And we're going to go back over to the desktop. And let me see here. There, now I can see it. We'll go to Tool. This mouse is jumpy. ASUS Easy Flash Utility, yeah. Look, it already sees the flash drive. Make sure that BitLocker is not turned on. Tell it I want to read the file. Do you really want to update the BIOS? Yes. And now it says processing update area 5 there at the bottom of the screen. Now just stay out of its way and let it do its job. And so long as you leave it alone, you'll be successful. If you won't leave it alone, probability of failure goes up much higher. Well, it's doing that. I'm going to grab a cold Gatorade. And if you have questions for me in the chat room, this is a good time to ask. Eddie Sawyer joins us, says hello. Welcome in, Eddie. Get out on the boat, says Carrie. I still got my old one that I built on YouTube. It is working. Right on. If she built it right then, and he chose good parts. Ben Laird wants to know if BitLocker run, could it brick the motherboard? No, the BIOS has nothing really to do with BitLocker other than the BitLocker key is configured based on the BIOS. So when you change the BIOS, you change the BitLocker key. So when you change the BitLocker key, you're you're going to need to know your previous BitLocker key in order to get back in to boot up to your drive. Otherwise, you will have everything unavailable to you and you will have to reformat the drive and reinstall Windows. That would be a worst case scenario. But if BitLocker is turned on and you update the BIOS and you don't know your BitLocker key, you ain't getting back into Windows, period. It will not, the system isn't going to boot. So no, it doesn't brick the motherboard, but it can lock you out of your drive. And the only way to break that lock is to either properly unlock it with the key or reformat, repartition, and reformat the drive, reinstall Windows. If I lock my keys in my car, it doesn't make the car not work anymore. I mean, you could say it's not working because you don't have the keys. So while we're waiting for the BIOS to update, again, I'm just looking through the chat room to see if there's questions or comments that you guys have for me. If you asked earlier, I can't do both things at once, so you'll have to ask again. I'm not intentionally ignoring you. John Downey says, what is the cooling capacity of the CPU cooler? This is a Mugen 5. They don't make it anymore, but somewhere on the box it probably tells us what the TDP is. I suppose we could just open up, oh, wait a minute, it says the update's done. If we open up Copilot or something like that and just ask Copilot, what is TDP of Mugen 5? Wow, did I misspell that bad? About 150 watt to 180 watt. If your CPU rather is 150 to 180 watts, this cooler ought to do it. But this cooler does not have the Generation 15 socket compatibility. You'd have to go to a Mugen 6, which again also adjusts the performance level of cooling. Essentially, everything I put on the Mugen 5 is cooled it fine. Even i9 9900s have been cooled fine by this. So I never even look at it. It just works. If it's got the right socket compatibility, you know, in the box, at least as far as the Mugen 5 goes, not all coolers, it just works. All right, so we restarted here and it says, blah, 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 you're going to enter the UEFI. Okay, that's fine. Please enter setup. So I got to use the right keyboard. So I'll come over here. What is it? Delete? What am I pressing? Did I even turn the keyboard on? Next, you will enter the UEFI settings menu. Please enter setup. So how do I do that? F1 maybe? Yeah, F1. There it is. So now we should see we have the latest BIOS installed. And again, I need to go full screen to see this because it's way too small for me to see it. Open source projector, there it is. Okay. So date and time. If we go up here to, it's right in front of my face somewhere, CPU information, RAM information, cooler. Usually there's like an easy mode. Oh, there it is. Easy mode will give us the basic information I'm looking for, which is going to be the make and model of the board, the BIOS version, the CPU, the RAM. It's just a lot easier to see in the easy mode. And it says our CPU fan is running here. And everything looks good to me. There's our 960 Samsung. So save and exit right here. Click OK. And with that, we're done with the BIOS flash drive. So what I can do now, obviously this machine has nothing to boot from. It's just going to reset. The NVMe drive is completely wiped out, like it's never been used before, even though it's used. We ran the clean command, and I've got a video that shows you how to reset drives back to factory settings. But it can't boot off the BIOS flash drive, and it can't boot off the internal NVMe. So all it can do is go into the BIOS or give us an error message. So since we're back at the BIOS, I can now take this flash drive out, and I'm going to erase the file on here. I'll never need it again. It'll go back in the drawer as a blank flash drive, so the next time I want to flash a BIOS for a completely different board, there'll only be one file on this, so I won't pick the wrong file by mistake. There are safety mechanisms in place nowadays, but it's my process. There's no benefit to holding on to that. It takes me 2 minutes to download it again if I need it. That's the first time I've needed it, at least since January, so for that board. And I've used it many times for many other boards since January. What I do need, though, is my Windows 11 install media, because that's what this is all about, Windows 11. And we have a video showing you how to download Windows 11 legitimately and legally from Microsoft using a free piece of software called Rufus, so you can bypass the Microsoft account without all the nonsense you see all the enthusiasts just really overthinking and making it way more complicated. You know, to each their own. And so let's go ahead and plug that in, and let's get Windows 11 installed here. So now that we've got it plugged in, let me switch back over to the other screen. Find the right mouse. Not confusing at all. And then we'll just, once again, we'll hit, what is it, F10? Got to use the right keyboard, Carrie. Enter. Now that USB stick that I just plugged in is the only bootable thing. There's nothing else for this computer to boot to. We don't need to go in the BIOS and tell it where to boot. It's not stupid. The manufacturers, the engineers who designed this said, whatever the boot order is, boot to these things in this order. If there's an internal drive that's bootable, boot to it first. But if there isn't, then boot to a flash drive. And if there isn't, then boot to an optical drive. And if there isn't, then boot to the network. And if there isn't, then boot to, you know, some other device. In that order. If we leave that alone and don't modify it the way the manufacturer intended, then everything just works automatically, and you don't need to do all those steps that are typically learned by people 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and they just haven't changed their ways. If you're new to this, then you probably wouldn't even have thought to do that. This is where old information gets in your way. We had a reason to go into the BIOS and override boot settings in the past. That reason no longer exists on modern computers, including setting the date and time. There's no reason for us to do that anymore. It's all handled automatically now. All right, we're going to hit next, install Windows 11, next. I'm going to say I don't have a product key, but I will buy a Windows 10 Pro product key from our friends over at URCDKeys. But I will do that much later. That's one of the last things I do. You don't need a product key to install Windows. You don't even need a product key to use Windows ever. But you will get an annoying watermark after about 3 days that says you should activate Windows. And if you want to change your wallpaper or do any sort of color type customizations, you will need a product key for that. But when you actually have work to do, like you need to open up Microsoft Word or you've got to answer emails, a product key doesn't prevent that ever from happening. It doesn't behave any differently. It's all just marketing to get you to spend money and something you probably don't even need to have, honestly, but it might make you feel good to have it. So again, if that's the case, you don't like the watermark, you're intolerant, and you don't like to see it, you pay for a product key, it goes away. It's just something most content creators don't tell you about. Activation is optional. If I don't activate this, I can still use it exactly the same. I just can't change my wallpaper or some desktop icons. But it still works the same performance, same security update, same Windows update. Everything's the same. I get a watermark. and it'll stay that way for the entire life of the operating system. So technically Windows is free. Just so you know, download it right from Microsoft. That's why they make it available. They're hoping the watermark is enough peer pressure to get you to pay for the activation key, but it's really a choice. You really don't have to. David Graham says, I missed his milestone chat. Oh, I'm sorry, David. Let me go back. See, I missed a lot. Oh, now a member for 26 months. Right on. Well, thank you for renewing your membership and being here now over 2 years. Thank you for that. And thank you for letting me know that I missed it. I hate when I miss stuff like that. How we doing? Still installing. Yeah, I'll just take a minute. Barry Klein said he's been listening, but he's just jumping in to say hey. Good to see you, Barry. Questions, comments? Well, we're waiting for our operating system to install. You'll also notice there's no network connected to this. We will not connect the network until we get to the desktop. The reason for that is I don't want to sign into a Microsoft account because it's not my computer. Why would I sign into my Microsoft account? And why would I ask a customer to disclose their login and password information? It's not professional. Nothing wrong with having a Microsoft account. There is something wrong if you have mine. That's how I feel about it. You might feel differently. So it's really critical that I make a local account on systems I build for customers, which is pretty much every system I build. And sadly, we're seeing these system builds go away. You're going to be seeing, if you haven't noticed already, fewer and fewer computer builds happening on this platform. And those that still do it are getting about 90% less views than they used to get. A video that would get 30,000 views is lucky to get 3,000. The culture and the interests or YouTube's algorithm just simply aren't doing what they used to do. And there doesn't seem to be any outcry or demand for it. So I think we're seeing it start to wean off, and it moves on to other things like tablets, portable devices, mini computers, etc. And I'm happy to go with the flow, but I just want you to know I'm not making this decision. I'm just trying to stay in business. And I don't get to decide necessarily if I want to sell desktops or laptops. I sell what customers want to buy. And when it comes to the consumers, it's for me completely dead. I mean, completely 100% dead. I don't think I've sold a computer to a consumer, a desktop computer. I've sold minis, but I don't think I've sold a desktop computer to a customer, a home user. I better be careful in all of this year. And if I did, I can't remember it. That's how insignificant it was. I used to have trouble keeping up. But this just goes to show you the technology moves quickly and the consumers are very fickle. What they want 1 minute changes to what they want the next. It does feel like it was very short-lived, but I think we're going to see this more rapidly increase. I think more and more people are stepping away from traditional television and going to streaming services. I think more and more people are stepping away from even driving and going with like robo-taxi services. More and more people are getting food delivered with services like DoorDash and Uber Eats. These were things that did not exist a few years ago. And then we're probably going to see that peak out, and it'll be replaced with something else within 3 to 7 years, I would guess. And it'll be something else. Maybe it'll be drone delivery, or I really don't know what's coming, but it's happening faster. Fewer kids now listen to the radio than when we were kids. When I was a child, a lot of kids won't listen to the radio. It's just a box full of ads. When they could play the songs they want to hear, the order they want to hear them, and fast forward and rewind, why would they listen to the radio? We're seeing the demise of radio. And as we see things like Spotify increase in usage, something will come along and replace that too. Everybody had an iPod for a very short period of time. When's the last time you've seen one? So, like I say, the length of time something can last or trend is shortening up over and over again. I'm shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. This is going to be tough if you're in a career and you're accustomed to fixing cars with gas engines, and now everybody's driving electric, because your skill set really doesn't apply much at all anymore. So you either have to re-educate, retrain, change careers into something else, because now maybe you don't like working on electrics, you like working on mechanics. It's not the right job. There's other forms of transportation that, diesel mechanic, that might be an easier transition away from a combustion engine. I mean, a diesel is still a combustion engine, but then, compared to electric, which is an entirely different skill set. And, you used to be able to have a career for 30, 40 years. I think now you're lucky if you can get 20 years. So honestly, I think you're lucky. There are some fields like medical and law, but even they require constant re-education to keep up with all the changing laws and all the changing tools and medicines that are available. It's not like you can just learn a trade and just do that for 30 years. You used to, but everything's rapidly changing. And so I'm not so much complaining about it. I'm not happy about it, but it's not different for me than it'll be for you or anybody else that's of working age. Just be prepared. Just know it's coming. And while you're doing what you love doing, hopefully you grow in the same direction it does and you love it the whole time. But if it starts taking a turn in a way that you don't like, oh boy, most of us are not prepared for that. So be ready. Especially if you're younger, it's coming. All right, we're done here, so let's go through our final setup here. Yes. Yes. Skip. Don't have internet. See, this is what's going to enable me to make that local account. This isn't going to change, by the way. I know there's a lot of content creators that will sit there and boy, oh boy, are they beating that drum, and they keep doing it. And you guys, not all of you, but when I say you guys, I just mean like the internet community on YouTube just keeps falling for it. It is the fake throw that you do with the dog, and the dog just keeps believing you. It never learns. Most dogs will just, their whole lives, they'll think you're throwing that ball, even though every single time you do it, you might fake it the first 2 or 3 times. It's pretty rare to find a dog that goes, oh, I know he's going to fake it the first 2 or 3. They just don't catch on. But you say, well, that's because it's a dog. Okay, but then why are people still believing all the same nonsense that these content creators keep repeating every 6 months? How is that different? And shouldn't it be? Shouldn't it be? I don't get it. Makes me sad. So I have to keep tooting the same horn and repeating myself. It's still not a thing. Every 6 months, it's still not a thing. Still hasn't happened. Damn it, Carrie, I want to be outraged about something. Why can't you let me have my outrage? Wouldn't you rather be happy? Wouldn't you rather be outraged at something that exists? I'm outraged at Chupacabra and Bigfoot and Nessie. I'm outraged at things that don't exist. Why you gotta ruin it for me? I'm only happy when I'm upset. Oh, it's funny because it's true. And Laird says he can't wait to see an electric main battle tank. About 60 tons. Well, the truth is, a battle tank, if it was electric, it would probably be drone operated, and it wouldn't need that much armor because you're not protecting anybody inside. It could be much, much smaller, more nimble, faster, run on batteries, and be controlled remotely. So, you know, you gotta keep in mind that we're not blending an old style of, you know, those bicycles that had the one big wheel and the one little wheel? I'd like to see one of those with an electric motor. No. Why would you do that? You wouldn't blend old school and new school. You wouldn't make it that way right out of the get-go because it wouldn't be needed anymore. So think about what you're saying. Let me grab an Ethernet cable here. And when I plug this Ethernet cable in, you'll notice the little globe in the bottom right corner will flash. And all those icons on the start menu are going to fill in. Let's try it. There we go, plugged in. Flashing in the bottom right corner. And when we get an IP address, it'll connect to the Microsoft servers, right? And then it determines our region to determine what icons we get. And then it asks us if we want to load those drivers from the manufacturer, which, why wouldn't I? It seems like that's a lot less work than having to go and grab the drivers manually. And we know we're getting reputable, you know, the manufacturer, reputable source. And Asus does have like a quicker driver install. The Armory crate is a little bit heavy as far as like resources go. And I know they have a driver thing, but I'll just do this because even though that software is a bit heavy, it's no work. Like if I wait and let it do everything for me, but it takes 4 times longer than if I did it myself, I'm in no hurry. I'd rather let it do its thing. But it's a choice, and you can make a different decision. But I do want to make sure either way I'm getting the drivers directly from the manufacturer, not from any driver software. I think that's a huge error in judgment that, you know, was once a smart thing to do back in the day, but the reasons we did it no longer exist today. So while that's installing, let me jump back over to camera 1. David Graham says, as soon as the electric tank comes out, so will the jammer. No, they've already figured that out too. So right now, this is fascinating stuff. What the Ukraine has been doing to Russia is fascinating. They'll take a little boat that's controlled remotely, and on the boat, it has these containers. And the containers contain regular drones that fly. So the Ukraine, and look on YouTube, there's videos of it. So these boats are completely unmanned, and they're driving deep into enemy territory. And when they get close, they can strike an area that a drone cannot reach. So how do they prevent the jamming? The drone is attached to a fiber optic cable. You don't even see it. So when the drones connect, the drone is physically got a leash on it. And that leash is connected to the boat. And the boat is connected to the remote operator somewhere in the Ukraine. And they can go far deeper into enemy territory than a drone's battery could normally allow it to go. And then when the drone is detonated, because they're basically kamikaze drones, that fiber optic cable then just gets coiled up and falls to the ground. It's so inexpensive, who cares? It's like a fishing line. You barely even see it. And that way they have direct communication with the drone it's connected with the fishing line, basically a fiber optic cable. I forget how many feet of cable, and it's just sacrificed with the drone, and that 100% avoids the jamming of the drone. Trust me, all this stuff has already been thought about. And if you dive into it a little bit, if you ask like ChatGPT or Copilot, I think you'll be amazed that whatever it is you're thinking of, they've already solved it. Every time I have an idea, I think, why hasn't somebody done this? I Google it, somebody did it. Not only that, they did it years ago. I just wasn't in the loop. Damn it. Damn it. Thought I had an original idea. Yeah, turns out when you connect to the world, And now people, you know, there's information available very easily if you bother to look it up. Yeah, it's very depressing. Thought I had a great idea. No, somebody had that idea 10 years ago, Carrie. Damn it. How we doing over here? Yeah, I figure this is gonna be a few minutes. The Armory Crate software is a pain in the butt, but again, so is downloading the drivers, and all I have to do is sit and wait versus actually do anything. With the same results, I mean, let it do it. Martin mentions we've had wire-guided missiles for a long time. So there you go. Jim Kenny says the months are in green, missing numbers. Oh, when it comes to your YouTube memberships, there are badges awarded at certain milestones. So you'll get a badge when you're new, you'll get a badge in your first renewal, you'll get a badge on your second renewal, then you'll get a badge after your 6th renewal, then your 12th, and then every 12 months thereafter. And that's all the same with every membership on YouTube. It's not different for us. That's just how they do it. Jump back over here. Ah, finally. Okay, let's see. What does it want now? Privacy notice. Where's my mouse? Here we go. Free feature library. I don't want any of that. Theme. I don't really care about it. Themes. Understand. Yeah, I don't know what Asus was thinking. This thing just goes on and on and on. It is probably the single worst piece of motherboard manufacturer utility software I've ever seen. Like, nobody makes one worse than this, in my opinion. If it was ASRock or Gigabyte or MSI, we'd have been done by now. This is just a pig of a piece of software, and Asus doesn't seem to care. But I will use it because it makes the driver installing much easier. And then once I get the drivers installed, I'm going to be removing this because it also can be a security concern. It always has been in the past, and I'm sure it will be in the future. So the only reason I'm putting it on isn't for RGB control and other nonsense gaming. This is for primarily just so I can put my drivers on, and I don't want to have to do it. I want it to do it. It's just going to take 10 times longer. But again, if I'm busy doing something else, you know, it's gonna, when it's done, it's going to accomplish the same thing. So I'd rather not do it. I'd rather just install it. When I'm done, I'll uninstall it. Just a choice. Either way, you end up with the same results. David Graham wants to know how many customers of yours will need a hardware upgrade. At this point right now, there is one customer, and we're talking about businesses, that has probably the 7700. We'll know next week. I'll go grab it next week, and we'll do that maybe next Sunday. It's Windows 10. It's not Windows 11 compatible, so I'm guessing it's probably of the same era that these were. but it's a totally different client. And then that's it, we're done. I have another client that has a Windows 10 computer that needs to be upgraded to Windows 11, but their hardware's fine. Anything that I built from 2018 forward, you know, we're talking 7 years, it's all still 100%, no reason to upgrade it. Now, normally with a business client, I would say, you know, once you reach 5 or 6 years, you should replace the computers. But now I don't think that's true anymore. I think it's good to go 10 years. I used to say how these were 8-year builds that I was making. I think when I built the 7700, I said, this is an 8-year build. That's what I said 8 years ago. And I couldn't have predicted this. It's just, that was about the length of time things were starting to last. So I said, this is an 8-year build. Today, I think they're 10-year, potentially 12-year builds now. Unless something drastically changes with the operating system, I'm not sure when that first took effect, but I'd say with the 8th generation, I might still have called it an 8-year build, the same as I did with the 7th generation. But it turns out the 7th generation truly was an 8-year build, maybe 9 years if you do the extended updates for Windows 10. With Generation 8 and beyond, I think you can go 10 or 12 years. So if you have a, let's say right now you have a 9th gen, like an i7 9700K, you're not hurting at all. You're not lacking in any way, shape, or form as far as I'm concerned. You got your Gen 3 NVMe, you've got your DDR4 RAM. Your system isn't really going to perform that much better if you jump up to 14900. I mean, it'll perform a little bit better, but to buy a new board, new RAM, new storage, buy another operating system, move everything over, I don't think it's worth the cost for what you're going to get back in return to what you have now. But let's say you built that i7 9700K 6 years ago. I would say you've got at least 4 to 6 more years out of it before you have to worry about replacing it. So the technology continues to give us less and less that we're actually using. If you're using, let me just put it this way, if you're using 20 gigs of your RAM, but you've installed 64 gigs of RAM, you just wasted your money. You wasted it. And if you're like, you know, I feel like 64 isn't enough, I want 128 gigs of RAM, but you're still only using 20. I don't know what people are thinking. Let me buy more of what I'm not using. Who does that? What other areas of your life would you buy medicine you don't take? Would you buy clothes you don't wear? I mean, you probably intend to wear them when you buy them, but then you end up not wearing them. But would you know right out of the gate, I'm never going to wear this, and then buy it? Because that's what people do all the time with RAM. Storage, you might say, ah, well, I'll grow into it, you know, but RAM, you're probably not going to. You're just throwing money away. So it's your choice. So you can throw your money out in the street for all I care. But if I'm guiding you as your technician, I want to make you aware of what things there are to consider, and then with you giving that some consideration, I'm happy to build what you want me to build, even if it doesn't make any sense. As long as you like it, that's my goal. But I want to make sure you're prepared to understand that you could effectively end up with something identical in every way for less money. I can't imagine why anybody wouldn't want that, but I don't need to, because if the customer says I don't care, it's an emotional want, it's not a need, I can't argue with that. They'll say, you know, I can't explain why I want that, I just want it. Fair enough. I'll get to work. Nick Caffrey said, using the knowledge from this channel in 2012, I built an Intel Core i7 Ivy Bridge. 3770, 3rd generation, still works in 2024. Yeah, like I said, it'll have a lifespan of about 70 years. Now, if you were using a mechanical hard drive, that part will likely have failed or soon will. But if it's all solid state electronics, it's pretty much, you know, assuming there's no liquid coolers involved, It's going to outlive its usefulness. Let me go back over here and see how this is progressing. Oh, finally. Reboot it. Now keep in mind, since I'm plugged into the network, it's probably downloading Windows updates in the background. So I wouldn't be surprised if this restart takes a bit longer as it starts installing Windows updates. I will go to Windows Update and manually look for updates, but I first want to get the drivers installed. I don't know, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I mean, I could go get the Windows updates first. That might contain some of the drivers. But I found that's, for me anyway, that doesn't usually work out that way. It finds usually maybe half of them. So I can get 100% of the drivers out of the way right now and then go get the Windows updates. I guess it doesn't matter. Either way, you're still going to spend the same amount of time. So again, as long as it's automated and it's going to do the same job I could do manually, I'll just let it automate the job. What do I care? As long as I'm not sacrificing any quality or any difference in the reliability of the right drivers, why would I do the work if I don't have to? If the end result is the exact same result. Now, when we've rebooted here, the first thing I would like to do, I don't know if it's going to let me, is change that resolution down to 1080, but we haven't put the drivers in yet. We've only put that software in, so I don't know that I have video drivers yet. Oh, I do. Good. 1920 by 1080 is what I want. And then down in the corner, we should see the Armory crate. No? Let's come over here and just type in ASUS. No, that's not what I want. Let's type ARM. Yeah, Armory crate. There we go. Now with that finally installed, I can check for drivers. By the way, what drivers are we missing? I never even bothered to look. Look in the device manager and see. Oh yeah. Yeah, we got about 6 of them that are missing. So I'm going to skip the wallpaper because that's nonsense. Go to the user center. And we're going to go to, see, I don't need to log in. Where's it under? Dashboard, maybe? Yeah, it's been a while. Settings. Update center. Boy, they buried it. Okay, an update's available for the ROG Live, don't care. Okay, so this will be all the drivers, I guess. No, this is all RGB stuff. This is not what I want. Well, wait a minute, let's check for updates. This just seems like software updates for ASUS's Armory crate, which is not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the drivers for the hardware. Not sure if it's on this particular area or if we go into a different area. Yeah, this is all just software update. Let's go back to devices, click on the motherboard. You must first update your device. Okay. I see. So even though we did all that with the Armory crate has to be updated again. Like you'd think when we downloaded it, we would be getting the latest version. This is terrible software management from ASUS. I am just disgusted by anytime a company makes you download an old version and then immediately have to update that to the current. It's costing the company money and bandwidth. It's frustrating to the user. And it's just absolute disrespect, and there's a lack of courtesy to force your customer to go through that. It's just bad management. It's not a technical problem. It's a human problem where they disrespect you. They value their time over yours. Last I checked, I was the customer. And I don't like doing business with companies that do that. However, this is normally a piece of software I wouldn't have installed to begin with. So this is one of the consequences of my decision of letting the software do it for me. Not really saving any time here, but I'm saving a lot of brain effort. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to download and extract and install and reboot. This will take care of all that for me. I'm not saying it's the right decision, but it's definitely a choice you have. As I mentioned, the result will be the same. Even if this result takes 10 times longer, it involves 10 times less thought on my side. I don't have to think about it. So, yeah, pick what's right for you. You've seen me install drivers all by myself. If somebody can cook me dinner the same way I would cook it, you can go over the stove and the heat in the kitchen. I don't mind one bit. I'll just grab my knife and fork and have a plate and a napkin ready. But if I'm hungry and nobody's going to cook it the way I want it, I will go and cook it. I'm just saying, if I have options, I'm going to do the one that requires the least amount of effort. If I don't have to do it, if somebody else could do it the same, let them do it. Is that a good attitude or a bad one? I don't know. And it wants to restart again. Okay, let's go back over here. Let me go full screen again. Every time I go out of this, I have to go full screen. That's why there's a delay. And let's see. All right. Just continuing to look in the chat for other questions you might have here. Some people think that we're building gaming machines. I have no problem building them if they paid. But gamers are extremely difficult people to please. They often have deeper wallets than most people. They often have more time than most people. And they often have unreasonable demands and are intolerant to anything less than what they think they know exactly what they need. That's why for most gamers today, they just build their own rigs because they won't follow any reason. From my perspective, overall, a stereotype that I see with gamers time and time again is they believe in ritualism and they believe in ideas, but they don't necessarily have any facts to back it up. But that's why it's just, there's less resistance if those people just build their own systems. But if you're building a system for somebody else and you have to stay within a budget and certain results, we don't do that on feelings. We do that on measurable facts that can be proven if they're ever audited. So with gaming, it's just fun. You're just having a good time. If you got $1,000 to go have a good time, good for you. If you've got $400 to go have a good time, or you have $4,000 to go have a good time, I'm happy for you. And you can spend your money however you want to spend it. But if you want to be a professional in the industry, that is not an attitude that's covered by corporate America. But it doesn't mean it's the wrong attitude. It's just uniquely, gamers, they have their own little set of rules and nobody enforces them. In corporate America, there's a set of enforced rules that determine whether or not you're going to have a job. And I think that's something to consider. It doesn't mean you have to abide by anybody else's rules unless you're working for them. So you're going to find I'm working for people. So I'm going to give you the attitude of the responsibility and accountability to delivering a product on time meets the customer's needs and budget. But none of that involves gaming. So if you're here for gaming, you're going to be sadly disappointed. All right, let me get back over to this and see what's going on over here. We're back up and running, and maybe this time it's going to let me check for drivers, huh? Back to the Armory crate. Skip it. Cancel. I don't want to log into an account. Shouldn't have to. Oh, here we go with this again. I don't want this, so I'm just I have to go through this process with Microsoft Edge regardless, so I'll just get that out of the way. Let's see, driver installation. Please select the AI noise. Oh, maybe it was taking us to the driver. So ultimately, I probably could have just gone here, honestly, without installing the Armory crate. I don't really use Gigabyte or ASUS motherboards anymore. So I'm a little out of touch. I don't remember. I think this is all I needed. So if you're following along with me, if you have an ASUS motherboard, probably just the driver hub is really all you need. You don't need that whole Armory crate thing unless you want control of all the gaming and home user stuff. Businesses aren't going to be putting this on, but they absolutely do want the drivers. So let me get that installed, and this is what I should have done. Had I known, had ASUS made this, the pop-up that appears down here, which is what they should have done, you're just supposed to know this. According to ASUS, you should know this through osmosis. You shouldn't have to be taught or guided. Lovely attitude, isn't it? Follow the on-screen prompt to install the software. I didn't see an on-screen prompt. Download. Click. Install. Oh, okay. I guess I didn't install it. I downloaded it twice. All right, accept. I swear I already did this, didn't I? Finish. And then nothing happens. Great. And I put, is it here? Oh, it put it on the desktop. Why didn't it run? Oh, ASUS. You design computers for enthusiasts. You don't design them for home users. And that's why we don't use them anymore. Intel chipset, Intel LAN, serial, Wi-Fi, audio. Yes, I'm just checking to see if there's any like Norton or other nonsense advertising. I think we're good. We'll hit install all. And that when this is done and we restart, we should have all of the device manager items looking happy. That's likely a video driver. Hey, they asked. LAN drivers going in. And we'll jump back over to camera one here for a moment. But yeah, that Armory crate's coming off. Won't Windows Update give you the motherboard drivers? Depends on the motherboard, and it also depends on whether or not you're getting the latest drivers. If you want to rely on Microsoft, if you trust the technology to do everything for you, I think you're going to be in for a rough ride ahead. Well, the technology keeps getting better, and Microsoft's Windows Update provides more drivers than ever before. The newer your board is, or the least popular a specific component the manufacturer uses, will determine whether or not it ever gets provided by Windows Update. And even if Windows Update has the driver, it may be old. So the best place you can go and get drivers will be from the board manufacturer, or in the case of a sound card or a network card or a chipset, you can go right to the manufacturer themselves, Realtek, Intel, etc. Same is true with your video cards. Now, you don't have to. I mean, if you want your system to run at lower performance and potentially have exploits and security issues because you just can't be bothered to go and get the drivers and you want Microsoft to do it, you will get the basics. Microsoft is really good at providing basics. You may not need a word processor. Maybe you just need Notepad. Notepad's free. You may not need a full configurable backup software. The Windows 7 backup software in the control panel of Windows 11 and Windows 10, it's fine. It's very simple and very basic. Microsoft does a very good job of giving you the basics included in Windows. But when you decide you need something better than Paint, then you go to Adobe Photoshop or Affinity or something. When you decide you need something better than Notepad, you're going to go to Google, you're going to go to Word. When you decide you need something better than, fill in the blank, Microsoft is just giving you all the basics. And for most people, probably 90% of the basics is fine, but there's this 10% individual, if you're an author, if you're somebody who does a lot of writing, Notepad's not going to be good enough for you. But if what you're doing is mostly writing emails, well, you might want a full version of Outlook, or maybe you're just using Gmail, and you may not need the Outlook that comes in Microsoft Office. You may not need Microsoft Office at all. It may be completely useless for you. So the basics more than cover 90% of the needs of the user, most users. And then the user's personal interests are going to be more demanding for what their interests are in, such as writing or graphics, things like that, graphic arts, photo editing. Again, Microsoft gives you basics. And that's true with the drivers as well. You can get a basic driver, and it may be all you need, and ignorance may be bliss. If you don't know there's a better driver that gives you better performance and better security, you may be under the false impression you've done everything correctly and that your computer is as secure as possible and performing as good as possible when it potentially isn't. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not there. Not to make you paranoid, but it's a pretty easy thing to check. I don't know why you'd be so bothered by going and looking. You don't have to. Since I'm charging for my work, clients are paying me to do this. If you're not getting paid to do it, you can do whatever you want. There's going to be a theme to today's show. Let's see, are we ready yet? I don't think it's done. Let me go back full screen over here. No, it's at 99%. Almost ready. All right, we'll just let that sit a little bit longer. Come back over to camera one. And we're just at just over 3 hours on today's broadcast. So we're probably going to go ahead and reboot and check our device manager. We'll make sure everything's happy. Probably tonight, off camera, I'll go ahead and put this back in the case, same as yesterday. Some cables may need to be extended with regards to the cable management, given this board's a little deeper, so like the front umbilicals, I might have to give myself more slack. I don't know yet until I get it in there. And I'll go ahead and activate Windows 11, do all the Windows updates, run the carries optimizer on it, all the standard stuff I do. And then we'll button that back up. We'll stick an updated October 2025 sticker on the side of the case, or upgraded. And then it's ready to go back to the client. Friday, probably after the show next Friday, I'll go to another client's, pick up a Windows 10 computer, and that should be the last one they have. And we'll go ahead and do a motherboard upgrade on that as well. Should be very similar to these two. I don't know till I get it, but it's the same case. We don't clone it, we just do a clean install. We're going to move all the data over. I'll do the data moving off camera because it's private information. And then they can reinstall Office and they'll re-log into Gmail and stuff, and reinstall Adobe Acrobat, reinstall printers. They should be good to go. It's really not a big deal. We'll map the drive letter to the NAS, all the standard boilerplate stuff. We usually throw Malwarebytes on it with a paid license. That's pretty much it. It's really relatively simple. It's a lot of work for a client when you normally don't have to do anything. A lot of times I'm logging in remotely and doing all the maintenance remotely. But every few years, I got to put this extra work in. But at the end of the day, it's really not that much work. It's really not that difficult. Then we're good for another, 10 years, maybe longer. So it's a good investment. Is that still stuck? Why is that taking so long? When in doubt, I think it just finished. When in doubt, wait it out. That's all I'm saying. All right, let's restart this bad boy. And then we'll check the device manager, and then if everything's good, we'll wrap it up for today, and I'll finish it up off camera. Not a lot to see anyway. I'm just gonna mount the board in the case and hook the wires up. Everything else is just software, so nothing you haven't seen me do 10,000 times before, probably. Did I not hit that button? Alt tab. Anything open? But I told it to restart. That's what happens when my screen gets really small like that. And sometimes it may have said restart, and I just have to wait. But I'm going to force it anyway. To heck with it. I know a guy that can fix it if it breaks. Mark Baggett said, backups have saved me at least twice. Always good to have them if needed. Oh, he's talking to Nick. Yeah, I mean, it's better to have a backup you don't need than not have a backup you do need. I hope you never need your backups, and I hope you always make backups you never need. That would be my blessing. May you have backups you never need. I mean it sincerely. I mean, it sounds funny, but I promise you, it's the best blessing ever. All right, we're back up to the desktop now. So let's just check the device manager. So remember, I'm not going to be able to change this wallpaper without activation. And I don't think this copy of Windows is activated. So let's check a few things. Right click, start menu, device manager, everything should be happy. Something happening here. I don't know why. Because we're not getting any errors. Sometimes if you take some things out and just let it refresh. Let's see. No? I wonder why that's opening. Let's take that out. Install it. Refresh it. Keeps putting it back. Everything looks happy. Let me close it and reopen it again. See if that comes expanded like that. No, now it's closed. So whatever I did seems to have fixed it. And then let's see, everything looks good now. We'll go over to right click and system. 11 Gen, 11600K, 32 gigs of RAM, Windows 11 Pro, 25H2. Let's see if we type activation. And we still need to get our Windows updates too. So while it's getting Windows updates, yeah, I will have to buy a code for this, which is no problem thanks to our friends at URCDKEys. We definitely don't want Xbox. Right click, uninstall that. And I don't want LinkedIn. Right click, install. Those are just little tiny things. They're not bloat. Let's go to settings and let's go to Windows Update. Check for updates. And while it's checking, you know, I like to turn this on. And I like to turn these on. It says there's an optional update here. I always grab these no matter what they are. And I'm going to come over to edit my power plan. Oops, wrong keyboard. Edit power plan. And I'm going to change this to 3 hours while I'm working on it. And this will be never, because it doesn't have a battery, it doesn't make any sense why you put it to sleep. And then that's it. Now we go back to waiting again. Such is the life of a tech. It's a lot of waiting. But again, you can force a lot of things by hand. I don't recommend it, especially when someone's paying you to do work. Probably best to make sure the machine's operating on its own, so when you leave, there's nobody there to force it anymore. So if there's a problem with updates or anything, best that it happens while you're there, the technician, than waiting for another phone call and making another trip out. John Williams wants to know if Secure Boot is enabled. No, but I appreciate you reminding me. I haven't checked that. Secure Boot at this time is an option. Whether or not Microsoft chooses to enforce that, it's a good thing to turn it on. So the fact that you mentioned it, I appreciate that. Let's quickly check, because we can do that at the same time. So we'll just come down here and we'll type in MSInfo, MSIN, system information, and we'll scroll to Secure Boot. Secure Boot is off. And what I will do is, it's very easy. Just go in the BIOS, go to your Secure Boot settings, turn it on, and reboot. That's all there is to it. But it has no impact on Windows 11 installing or Windows 11 operating. Not currently. Now, Microsoft may change that. So it's a good idea to go ahead and turn it on before you need it. And then you don't get that support call later. Again, when we're working with customers' computers, the best problem that a customer can have is not having the problem. And it's a hard sell to explain this to customers that, you know, what am I paying you for? Well, for all the problems you didn't have. Yeah, that, I know that sounds weird, but it's a very difficult thing to prove. And essentially, I just ask my customers, on occasion you'll get a customer that'll suggest you're scamming them. I'm like, well, have you had any computer problems in the last, few years that I've been working for you? Nope. Has your business been down in that time? Ever? Nope. Do you think that just happened? Or you think I might have had something to do with it? Sometimes they're like, I'm not sure. Well, you're not obligated to hire me. We can end this relationship if you're not happy with it. It's fine. But when everything goes completely sideways on you, I may not be available to help you. I've got other customers to handle, and I don't want to be in a situation of being reactive to an avoidable problem because regular maintenance wasn't done. It's just not how I run my business. I mean, you're welcome to call and ask if that day should come. But by then it will be missing so much maintenance, and it'll be an emergency. You probably won't have the patience to either pay my rate or to wait for me to put you on the schedule, unless I just so happen to be available that day. You're not a priority customer if you're not on retainer, and we're fixing problems that could have been avoided. So there's going to be a higher rate per hour for that. So, whatever you want to do is fine with me. Just tell me how you want me to proceed. It's a terrible salesman, I realize that, but I just don't have time for it. I'm like, I'm not going to sit here and twist your arm. If you don't see my value, then I'll find somebody else who does. I'm not going to waste my time trying to convince you. If you haven't figured it out by now, we're not right for each other, and that's fine. Find someone else that you're happy with. Then I won't be so insulted either. We'll both be happier if you go somewhere else. And if you don't want to go anywhere and you just want to ride it out, good luck to you. Have a nice life. I got work to do. You know, I'm not going to spend any more time, effort, or thought about what's going on over here. You're not paying me for that anymore. I'm not doing it anymore. Now it's all on you. And like I said, I'm not telling you not to call me again. I'm just saying I'm not going to be as flexible simply because I have to stay in business. I have to replace you with another customer. And that's going to limit what time I'm spending with you is now given to somebody else. Unless you know a way I can have more time. I also discount your rate because you're on a retainer. You're not going to get the discounted rate anymore. And it may even be more than that if it's an emergency. And if I'm available, it's going to be a lot of work to untangle that mess. Whatever way you want to go. And yeah, quite often they'll think I'm bluffing and they'll say, well, nice working with you. Likewise, nothing personal. Good luck to you. Move on. I'm not going to twist their arm and say, well, if you don't use me, this is going to happen and that's going to happen. You're going to have all these problems. I don't know. Maybe they won't. But they're not my problems anymore. That's the difference. They could be voluntarily my problems if I choose to take them on. But when they're under a retainer, I'm contractually obligated that their problems are my problems. And that's the thing. I'm not going to twist your arm so I can take on your problems. And there's nothing more satisfying, just checking on the updates. There's nothing more satisfying when a customer recognizes what you're doing. When a customer says, you know, you've been working for us all these years, and I know other people that own businesses, and I hear their nightmares and the issues they've had, and I realize we've never had those issues with you, and I want you to know we really appreciate the work you put in. Because I do have those customers. Some of you might find that hard to believe. Every customer I've got now appreciates what I do for them. And those customers who questioned it, they're not customers anymore. And guess what? I'm a lot more stress-free. How much money do you have to make it worth putting up with somebody? I got news for you. We all have a price. And when that customer is complaining their low price is too high, it's not worth it anymore. If it's not worth it to them, it's not worth it to me. It's got to be a reciprocal arrangement where I'm doing something they need done and they're paying me what I think is a reasonable, not outrageous, a reasonable price to pay for that work. And you can see from evidence of the work I've done what the results have been over time, because time is your true measure to truth. If I'm BSing you, you're still going to have problems. But if I'm doing everything I say I'm doing, which is to prevent problems, then all you got to do is look at our history and say, wow, never thought of it that way. We haven't had any problems. Well, there you go. There are employers that will pay you based on how many hours of work you're doing. So if you're putting in 50 hours a week, you're a hard worker. We're going to give you a raise. If you're putting in 30 hours a week, but you're doing as much as the guy that's there 50 hours a week, you're accomplishing the same thing in 20 hours less time, you're lazy and you really don't fit in here. So we're going to go ahead and put you on notice. We need you to up your hours here. So they're going to punish you for being efficient and give you your raise or your promotion or let you go based on how much time you're putting in, but not on what you're getting done. That's a very common thing I see with employers, even to this day, that I was fighting with back in the 90s, where employers, they're looking at a clock. And I'm like, but what if I don't need to be here 50 hours? What if I'm doing and accomplishing all the same things in 30 hours? Instead of giving me a raise, you're going to punish me. You hear yourself, right? Oh, we never thought of it that way. You know, I'm probably not a good fit here. Thank you for the interview. Have a nice day. I'm not going to tolerate that. You basically want me to slow down. You want me to just kind of sloth my way through the day so it appears I'm a hard worker. That's the most bizarre logic I've ever heard in my life. But some of these business owners, they're just not seeing the picture. And that's fine. It's their business. I got my business. I'll take it somewhere else. All right, well, we don't need to stare at this any longer. I think we'll just go ahead and wrap it up for today. And I want to thank, of course, Charlie Purdy and Mark Gaines and our friend Buster and Luke Greenia, Charlie Purdy. You guys just amazing as always, and every member that's here, and even our community members here in white. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today. I hope you're having a good Sunday. Hope you're having a good weekend. We're in the fall weather now, which is fantastic. I could use it to be a little cooler, but I do live in the desert, so that's on me. I know leaves are starting to change and getting all those fall colors. I'd love to be where Luke Greenia is right now. I bet it's beautiful. And thanks to Mara, of course, for all of the work she does behind the scenes. As a reminder, I've had her put a link to her release today cookbook, which is available on Kindle right now. We're still working on getting the paperback version done, and that's all for low carb, low blood sugar, and utilizing this new ingredient primarily. I think every recipe in that book uses UnbelievaFlour, which is, it doesn't have a very big marketing campaign. They're a smaller company, and it's been a real a quality of life improvement for Mara in particular, because of how well it replicates normal flour and the textures and the flavors and the cooking processes. It's not exact, but it's the closest she's found, and she's absolutely making everything with it. She loves it so much. So yeah, now she's sharing the recipes with the world, and also, you know, giving that company the credit they deserve. Hopefully they get more of a household name, because it's very few products on the market, and Mara would know, that can mimic that as well as they do. And right now, as far as she knows, they're the only ones who do it. So we wish them all success. And to all of you, thank you for interacting, and appreciate you hanging out with me today. We will be back live tomorrow. That'll be our members only. And I've got some channel updates there. I'll tell you what we're working on. We also have another update for the Nano KVM Pro, which I have not made a public video on yet because I don't think it's ready. They might agree with me, because for the second time in a row, they've taken it off of Amazon. It was on pre-order, they took it down. Then it was on pre-order again, and back on Amazon, it's unavailable. Now that may be because of the upcoming tariffs ahead of the negotiations. I think US and China are negotiating now. The idea is to get a time limit on it so that they can't hem and haw. So if they don't make a decision, or they refuse to negotiate to be able to sacrifice in exchange for us sacrificing, both sides need to sacrifice something. If neither side is going to sacrifice, then we're in a stalemate. In order to discourage the stalemate, the tariffs go up by November 1st. I can't help but wonder if maybe the folks over at SciPede that make the Nano KVM Pro want to wait and see how this plays out first, because they don't want to get stuck with that extraordinary tariff. On the other hand, maybe they agree with me and this thing shouldn't be sold yet. It's not done. It needs more time. But that doesn't sound like something they would do. Hate to say it. But there is another update for it. So tomorrow we'll go through that. I'm going to also talk a little bit more on that subject and a couple of other items in that realm, along with answering your questions and just hanging out with you very informally on Mondays. That's what it's all about. And those Monday videos are never available to the public. You've got to be a member if you ever want to participate or you ever want to watch them, period. And the membership is really there to support us here so we can continue to not have to worry about getting sponsors. If you would like that freedom of speech where I can be honest with you and I don't have any, I mean, the worst thing that can happen is you could not agree with me, but you're not the sponsors, right? I mean, together the memberships are replacing the sponsors, but it's not like you have one egg in one basket, and if you upset that egg, the whole basket's empty. Then as a content creator, I'm screwed. So by having so many people contributing a small amount, it means the worst punishment I could have for speaking my mind is I upset a viewer, but it's not done at a direction. It's not like, hey, today I think I'm going to upset somebody.
I'm just being honest. And I'm not looking for agreement. I'm not looking to change anybody's mind. I'm here to educate and encourage you to think on your own, not to tell you what to think. I can't do that with a traditional sponsor. And if I could, I would. So this is a non-traditional way to support the channel, in a sense that we're not going to go the typical enthusiast way. And our community determines our future. It determines our budgets. It determines how many videos we can make. And I can't thank the community enough, because it's just been outstanding. There's so much generosity and so much kindness that for the people that aren't aware of it or they choose not to participate, all I can tell you is there's the old adage that some people hear opportunity knocking and they complain about the noise. So if you haven't, if you're watching the video after it airs and you see the chat room flying by and you can't participate in it, it's because you're watching a recorded video. It's not live anymore. You think I Love Lucy reruns on TV or brand new? Anyway, we will be live on Monday for members only at 1 o'clock. And then the following shows will also be at 1 o'clock. So the following shows will be public after Monday, and it's only the Monday shows that are locked in. So if you're watching the video later after it's live and you do want to participate in our chat room, come back after or around 1 o'clock p.m. Arizona time, and we'd love to see you in the chat room. Say hello. Let us know you're watching. That'll wrap it up for me for today. Thank you again. We'll see you all. Well, we'll see the members tomorrow, 1 o'clock. Until then, bye for now.